The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
Station atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized.
It's Wednesday, August 6th, 15th, Thursday, August 16th, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond. And this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, broadcasting to you live from the Great White North on top of the very smoky mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. We are 150,000 strong nightly on the SOR radio network and Deep Talk Radio, and we say hello to each and every one of you. Thank you for tuning us in. Our archives, if you want to catch some previous shows, are all for free. We have them free on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our store, read up on the encounter online, and so much more. Don't forget, you can also go to questers.ca right now. Questers.ca. Click on the Fall Conference. Get your tickets for September 28th through 30th as Spaced Out Radio will present the first annual Caribou Paracon right up here in beautiful British Columbia. I'd love to see you all there. Great names coming in. Grant Cameron, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, Lorian Fenton, Eric Cooper, Mike Morin, and so many more. Tonight's show is brought to you by the YouTube channel Ensuho. Sebastian Martin brings high-quality messages to the masses. Go to spacedoutradio.com, click on the Ensuho banner, and subscribe today. The third Wednesday of every month, we dip into the paranormal pool with Ghosts of the Great White North. Now, usually, I have a sidekick with me, as we are joined by Mike Morin from Haunted Crew of Canada, but he's at a midweek wedding. So we are carrying on ourselves here, and boy, do we have a couple of great guests lined up for you. Gene Claridge and Jose Esparza are the organizers of the John Carroll Paranormal Research Group based out of the state of Ohio. This student organization was created in the effort to foster an environment in which students could investigate and thoroughly discuss elements of the paranormal with an academic frame of mind. Not only was this group endorsed by the university, but supported by the history department as well. They even won an award in 2013 for Outstanding Organization of the Year. And they've got some pretty cool places they've investigated, from Gettysburg to the Ohio State Reformatory and every haunted historic location in between. We're going to have some fun tonight. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, Everett Thiemer will be back with our latest news edition of The Encounter from the SOR Newsroom. Gene Claridge, Jose Esparza, welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight, gentlemen. So glad to have you a part of Ghosts of the Great White North tonight.
Thank you very much, Dave. We're looking forward to having a great show, and even though Mike's not with us, we'll march on.
Well, we pretty much have to. Here's Mike having a good time, hanging out with some friends, watching his buddy get married. Poor sap. Poor sap. But nonetheless, we will continue on. We will. I just can't see what's more important than being on Ghosts of the Great White North tonight. Jeez, Mike, come on.
Right.
Got to give him a hard
put
time.
down the whiskey bottle and let's talk some ghosts.
Exactly. We're going to start off with you, Gene, if you don't mind. Let's learn a little bit about you and your organization, because you're the one who got this study going with John Carroll Paranormal Research Group. Why did you think it was important to start it up?
So what was interesting was, before I came to John Carroll, I was raised Catholic, and John Carroll University is a Jesuit university. So one of the things that they really promote is an idea of learning multiple subjects. So most students go off to school, they major in finance or business, and that's all they study the entire time. John Carroll's a liberal arts school, so we were forced, quote, air quotations there, to look at other subjects, including theology and philosophy. So being able to ask questions like, is there a God? Is there an afterlife? Do we have fate? Or is everything that we do predetermined? So by being able to look at all these different questions, it kind of got you thinking. And when one of the courses they offered at John Carroll was a history course that took you out to the battlefields of Gettysburg. So one of my roommates at the time, him and I both took this course. We went out onto the battlefield, and during the day they had all the academic stuff where the professor takes you around, shows you the battlefield, explains to you how the battle unfolded. Well, at night, my roommate and I decided to do a little bit of a paranormal investigation. Again, air quotes, because it wasn't even an investigation at the time, which is more of walking around, taking some photos. And in doing so, we had some strange experiences, both with feelings and as well as with some photos. And I had asked Ray at the time, hey, what if we brought something like this to John Carroll? What if we brought an opportunity where we can have other students be able to answer some of these deep questions they may have? It's questions, again, in philosophy. Is there such thing as a soul or an afterlife? Or being a Catholic and going to this John Carroll University, one of the biggest arguments that the Catholic Church has is that, again, we have a soul, we have an afterlife, and we're just not worm fodder, if you will. So by having these students that are similar to me, again, what better proof for the afterlife than these ghost stories and being able to foster an environment in which they can experience it for themselves.
And for you, Gene, how did you get such an interest in the paranormal? Was it having experiences as a kid, or was this just something that intrigued you, like many of us, because of what we were seeing on television with all the paranormal shows and their popularity?
So unfortunately, I don't have one of those great stories of seeing my grandfather as a little kid, or having any kind of special skills set. But for me, it was always about history. I was absolutely fascinated with history as a child. Always watching the History Channel before it became more of like the Ice Road Truckers and Pawn Stars, getting away from the history. And I was just fascinated with shows like Civil War Journal, Most Haunted, And those shows captivated me as a kid, especially, going into school and starting getting into those Civil War books, especially Civil War ghost books, just absolutely took my interest. And over the years, that interest continued to build and build, especially when those shows came on, like Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, and stuff like that. And that just took my interest and just blossomed even further.
And how about you, Jose? How did you get involved in the paranormal?
Well, Dave, I just want to take a minute to say thank you so much for having us on tonight. Good to be with you.
Oh,
I'm
no
coming
problem.
at you here from Columbus, Ohio, home of the Columbus Blue Jackets. I find it fitting to mention that just because this hits the occasion with us talking Civil War ghosts today. And as you know, the Blue Jackets, they have their famous canon alternate jerseys, as well as the famous blue kepi in the logo there. So I just thought it'd be perfect to mention that. And
you know what?
my team.
I gotta say, I'm a little disappointed in the Blue Jackets. You see, back in 2005, they drafted a young kid that I personally knew named Gilbert Brulé, 6th overall, and they absolutely ruined the kid, ruined him, and I just can't love Columbus and the Blue Jackets because of that. They should have sent him back to junior, but another conversation for another day. I'm still heartbroken over that one.
Right. Well, I guess for myself, getting into the paranormal, I guess at an early age on, I was also like Gene. I was also raised Catholic, and I'm a Catholic practicing today as well. But I always went to had that fascination, about the afterlife, learning about heaven, learning about hell, having that whole concept. What really happens, to your your soul, and after you pass from this earthly life. And it was always a great curiosity as a child. And, I didn't get to foster it too much when I was in high school. And I really didn't, I attended grade school all through K through 8. And then high school, I had went to public school. But then luckily I got to go to John Carroll, which is a Jesuit school, Catholic. And I felt very spiritual. And I felt that spiritual calling. And so I was going through my day-to-day, classes, the different activities. I was very involved on campus. But then I got really into the philosophical questions and really the philosophy classes as part of the core that you had to take at John Carroll. And as Gene mentioned, those questions are things that I've asked myself, and a lot as a kid, and then also learning, trying to foster that opportunity to learn even more. I said, well, what is what can I really do to try to answer this question, and try to really feed myself with his knowledge here. And luckily I came along, and Gene brought up this idea for a paranormal group, and he told me all about it, and we really got started into the whole upbringing of the group and the whole process, and it was really exciting to be a part of it. And then once we really got into it, it started out as something I wasn't sure what we'd really be getting ourselves into, but it's become something that's become a passion for me, and it's really helped me to learn more about the paranormal and really have these experiences.
Well, thank you for saying that. And, I do tease you about the Blue Jackets. One day they'll get over that hump. One day.
I hope so.
They got to stop trading away players like Ryan Johansson, though. Got to stop that.
Hopefully we can keep the bread, man. That's our biggest concern right now.
I know. I know. I hear you there. But, the audience, I could talk hockey all night. I really could. But unfortunately, our audience is going to start rolling their eyes at me in any moment here. And I know over on Deep Talk Radio, Mr. Tim, he's like, well, what about my St. Louis Blues? They're like my Canucks, man. They are like my Canucks. They will never win. They're like my Canucks. Stranded in the epitome of the darkness of the NHL hell. That's what they are.
Yes.
That's right.
Exactly. I know Tim's laughing right now when he's hearing that, but nonetheless, you guys are pretty fortunate. And Gene, I'm going to bring you back in here for a second. You guys are very fortunate to actually have a university, a major university, actually take the paranormal seriously. There are very few out there in North America and probably around the world that would, allow for such study to be an important part of learning about, the history of life. I mean, sure, there's other groups out there. Okay. I mean, the biggest one that comes to mind is if you go back to Paranormal State with Ryan Buell.
Right.
I mean, that they weren't sponsored by the university. They just all attended Penn State. Yet you guys are being taught or shown that this is something that the university is acknowledging and wants you to study it. That's surprising to me, Gene.
It was a huge, huge barrier to initially cross. When we actually first reached out to the school about coming up with this idea, their biggest concern off the bat was what's the church's response to this. And I had to call the Cleveland Diocese and speak with one of the pastors that worked in the bishop's office to get his opinion on the matter, because some priests, even to this day, there's kind of two major schools of thought. And when I was talking to this pastor, he explained that some priests do not like paranormal investigations. Again, it kind of goes down that road of witchcraft. You shouldn't be messing with fire. That term came up numerous times in our conversations. You're playing with fire here. You don't want to get burnt. And he said, on the other hand, I'm more of the new school mindset of, again, you are supporting the number one teaching of the church, which is, again, you have a soul, that you have meaning in life, and if you do good things, you're going to be rewarded in the afterlife. So by you going out there to prove the existence of ghosts and exploring this further, you're helping us out. So he gave us, using this pun here, but he gave us his blessing, went back to the university, and the university had us go through a whole ringer of creating different policies. We had to come up with our own constitution. We had to bring on a professor full-time to be our advisor to the group. So in case there's any issues, kind of be the mediator. We also had to work out different things with the university as well in terms of evidence. What I mean by that is that the school did not want us just to go on a Facebook and start posting, hey, this is what we found, what do you guys think? Because they know by attaching their name to the group that if something happens, they're liable. So the idea of being professional right off the get-go was something very, very important that they made clear to us, because if there's anything that would come to discredit their name, they had the ability to cut us off and eliminate us completely. So we had to be very, very careful. But in the long term, we've been very successful, and they've been very proud of it. One of the things that I still find interesting to this day, I was on campus a few weeks ago to meet with our fellow military history professor, and as I was walking on campus, true story, they were doing one of the campus tours, and the guy that's taking people around was explaining, we have all kinds of different functions here. Obviously you can play football if you're interested in the sports. There's different sport environments. We also actually have a ghost group on campus, and it's one of those, having that couth and not getting too much of that ego, just kept, just smiled and kept on walking by. It was a really wonderful experience to have. So a great experience, but a lot of barriers.
Tell us a little bit about the backlash that you kind of got in trying to convince people to, take this seriously and convince the university, because anytime, and I find this very ironic, that you're at a religious school that is being convinced to allow this, yet there are universities with, no religion in sight or in their academia or on their board that won't even touch this topic with a 10-foot pole. Right.
And we saw that backlash immediately. When we had one of the things that the school wanted to do is to talk to different departments and different professors, especially when we were trying to find the advisor. And to talk to these different departments, it was like everyone just wanted to refer us to everyone else. You go to the psychology department thinking, hey, that's going to be a great start because of parapsychology. They don't want to deal with us. Go talk to the sociology department instead. Or you go to the sociology department, go talk to the theology department instead. And then you go there, and then I'll go talk to the history department instead. And even the history department didn't even want to initially bring us on and support us. So there was a lot of initial backlash. I remember meeting with one of the department chairs, and they told me that what we were doing is absolutely terrible, that, again, they equivalent us to part of like the hippie culture movement of being absolutely wrong, that we should stop while we're ahead, and just totally bashed me for a half an hour, again, being unprofessional and not even being open-minded to the subject. So there was, again, a lot of barriers, but eventually we were able to get the history department on board with us. They are kind of confused at first what ghosts have to do with history, but when we explain the correlation, it's something that we take for granted. It's funny because as investigators, we take a lot of stuff for granted in terms of, again, to us, if you go to the town of Gettysburg and people are seeing Civil War ghosts, gee, I wonder why, but these professors, they don't sometimes think outside the box like that until you explain it to them.
Jose, why do you think so many scholars, whether they're religious or not, have such a tough time in even looking at this evidence to see why or whether or not ghosts exist?
I think it might be tough just, with the initial, just hearing the word, ghost and, paranormal, it's not something in that academia world that, really is brought up that often and really not studied. And for us to, be doing this on a college campus that is, religious and has this great religious culture, I think it's not always something that they like to really talk about and condone so much. And it's been something, at least in our campus, I feel like we've kind of been able to shift the mindset in somewhat, now that we're an actually recognized group on campus. But, again, these other universities, they may not feel that way, and they may still have their stance that it's, totally against it. But I feel, it's just something that's probably just one of those things, they, like you said, they don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. They really just don't want to get into it. It's just something that, they find to be one of those taboo type of ideas. And I guess that's, that kind of just plays into that whole idea.
Well, Renee,
actually,
go ahead, Gene.
I want to add one idea in there too. One thing that I think really helped us out is that these days on campus, one of the things that they really promote is diversity, the idea of being open to all these different sensitive topics. And I think by doing the group now, with the idea of being a diversity-rich culture, kind of allowed for the creation of the group, even though all the barriers, it was a lot easier now than, let's say, if we went back 30 years ago. If we would have went back 30 years ago and tried to create this group, I don't think it ever would have happened.
I want to get to a comment from Renee. Usually we include our audience in hour number 2, but this is such a strong comment. I think we need to look at this. She goes, okay, so in saying all of this, why is it so hard for many colleges and universities, so easy to look at different religious beliefs, but would rather turn their backs to the paranormal where you can get some results? And I think the easy answer for that, and let me, jump in ahead of you guys here, I think the easy answer for that is the science behind it. Religion has always been a theology-type study, whereas when it comes to the paranormal, we're looking for the science of proof, which can never be defined. Would you agree with that, Eugene?
Absolutely. One of the biggest problems when it comes to the paranormal field is the idea that we can't get stuff to repeat instantly. What I mean by that is this, in what we call science, if you go out and you drop a bouncy ball off of a high-story building, you can see how high it jumps, measure it, do it again, measure it, and you can perform a study that way. When it comes to the paranormal field, you can go into, let's say, the Ohio State Reformatory, conduct an EVP session, get nothing. You go there an hour later, also get a response. You go there an hour later, you might not get nothing. So it's not repeatable, and that's why it's not considered science. If you Google if you just simply Google, the science behind the paranormal, that is the number one issue. That's something that we learned in all our courses because it's not repeatable. However, one of my caveats is that I think this stuff isn't repeatable instantly. One of the stories I'll share later on in terms of Gettysburg, there's a famous story about a soldier that's seen in Devil's Den. And that was experienced, 30 years ago, and people are seeing him still to this day. So again, this idea that the paranormal can repeat, but it may be on a long timeline, again, not having an instantaneous result that people want. So I think, again, when you have this battle of science, again, quotations, I know it's such a strong word. Again, the science of the paranormal is so difficult because, again, it's not repetible. And then in doing so, you create this terrible stigma, especially when these professors, and then one of the things I was going to bring up is that these professors even look at some of the equipment used in the paranormal field as a joke. If you show them a K2 meter or a Mel meter reading and have some evidence you want to bring in with using any of those devices or a spirit box or ghost box, they'll turn that stuff away because their argument is, what scientific proof is there to suggest that ghost box response is indeed a spirit, or a K2 meter hit is a spirit? Again, the science behind the equipment isn't there, so therefore they hate that evidence.
I get that, and I can appreciate that, but I mean, when we look at it, and I've said this many a times with scientists like Chris Cogswell, who, dude has a PhD in I think chemical engineering, and
right.
Other people who are involved in the sciences as well. And it's funny because a week tonight, you guys should actually tune in as well, because I'm having Simon Fraser University professor Paul Kingsbury come talk to us about UFOs. He actually got a huge, huge grant, which the university accepted, to study the paranormal, all fields from cryptids to ghosts to UFOs and alien abduction. It's been phenomenal.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And he is one of the only ones to get this sizable amount. And I think it's going to be like a 3 to 5 year study. So that's a week tonight. And I encourage everybody to listen to Paul when he comes in. But, I mean, do you think it's the fact that a lot of these universities, they're run by government grants, they're run by private donations, and when the donations and grants come in, they feel that putting it towards something that is so subjective and still so obtuse that they don't want to put the money into learning about it? Would you say so, Jose?
Right.
I would agree with that. It's especially when it comes to something as big as being actual grants to be able to do a study on something, and when you do a study and you're trying to almost enhance, or you're trying to find an advances in some way, and and further or better the education, or better the results in the end, and you want to put it, a lot of professors, they put it towards something in their field, and with the paranormal being something that may not really yield results right away, it may take time. I think it's something that I definitely would agree. It's not something that's going to be immediate. Not all these studies aren't going to be immediate results, but they're, at least when they put their money into something regarding their field of study, it's something that they have all these theories and all of these factors that they can use. And when you get into the paranormal, it can kind of be a little difficult.
Gene, what's your thoughts on that?
One thing I was going to bring up is when you have these different funds and grants that are brought in, some of these grants, again, depending on the university, especially I know we have, and even at John Carroll, there's, the health, different health courses and stuff. So when you have courses on, or grants that are going towards cancer research, obviously that is going to be way more of a target than compared to something like the paranormal field. Again, the university wants that tangible. Again, I think there's also that character reputation. When people find out about, oh, hey, the university sponsored this, and this, they want to have that good story. Oh, we helped out with cancer research. We helped out with environmental learning or sustainability. Here's some of the sustainable programs we're able to come up with. So again, there's that little bit of that reputation, and because of where you find out where the money is going, sometimes people can have an argument with that and be upset. Another thing you have to consider too is alumni. Alumni is obviously the biggest source for the school in terms of funding, the different grants for the different research. And sometimes, again, when you have the alumni, they're more pro, again, helping out with, again, cancer research and, again, paranormal research, just because there's that stigma on the paranormal field. Again, when you talk to people about the paranormal field, you get people that think that we just sit and pull out the Ghost Radar app on our phones and yell and provoke like Zach Bagans or something. They don't understand, again, what can be done, the methodology and kind of research can be done paranormal-wise to make a difference in the world.
Well, let me ask you, Gene, what are we trying to solve here? Are we trying to solve life after death? Are we trying to prove the existence of some sort of afterlife? What are we trying to prove here? Because in the paranormal field, we have so many different people trying to figure out whether or not places are haunted, why they're haunted, and everybody seems to have a different agenda. What should we be doing?
Yeah, obviously that's one of the biggest questions, right? And I think, personally, I think it's, again, being able to talk to these deceased individuals and getting to know their story. For me, that's what's important, because by getting to know the story kind of helps answer some of those questions there. So by being able to kind of converse with someone that's deceased, such as, again, a Confederate soldier in the town of Spotsylvania in Virginia, being able to get their story, kind of get to know a little bit about them. Again, with enough evidence over time there, again, maybe it helps answer the question. We have to be talking to somebody here, and then you start to match up with the history and stuff. So it kind of, again, answers that bigger question. Well, maybe there is a soul. And it kind of helps us figure it out. For me, again, it's all about getting to know these different stories to help me kind of even understand what's the purpose in life. Again, are we going to be just brain fodder, or is at the end of the day, is there something bigger and better in store?
Jose, what's your thoughts? What should we be trying to solve?
Well, necessarily, I'm not exactly sure if I can really answer that, but I would say, along with what Gene said, it's something that we've always focused on is trying to find, asking the questions, finding evidence, to support, that we could be, potentially talking to, to the afterlife and those who have been deceased. And, I think it's something that, we both very much enjoyed, having that, trying to ask ourselves that question, that we can, are we meant to do this? Is this something that we've, been able to, have the opportunity, and is this something that we're supposed to be doing? And so, Gene, I'm sure you maybe have a little bit more of an opinion on that.
Yeah, actually, there's something I want to add to that too, because I think that that's actually such a huge question, and that almost gets down to, can we ever prove the existence of an afterlife through ghost stories? And again, that's something that I think is very difficult. When I was at Carroll, one of the courses I had taken was the philosophy of science. And what I pretty much that course came down to is that science is only pertinent to that time, meaning that if you went back to the 1500s, it was science, it was known fact at the time that the Earth was the center of the universe. That was fact. That was the science. Versus obviously now things have constantly changed. You go back even 200 years ago, again, no one knew what atoms were. Now later on, we're getting into something as small as quarks. I wrote a paper regarding, again, what was the existence of ghosts ever be proven through science? I wrote a paper on it, and one of the things I argue is that, again, maybe it's something we have to wait for as we advance and technology down the road. Again, 200 years from now, will we have something like now where we're able to look at quarks? Maybe we'll have something 200 years from now where we can look into, again, this other realm or whatever it may be. So again, I think it's one of those questions that, again, we're constantly going to be trying to poke at, but I don't think it's something that's going to be an immediate answer. So that's why we like to focus on those stories. There's a term out there that we really like to use. It's called paranormal archaeology. Are you familiar with that? What that means, Dave?
No, fill us in.
So paranormal archaeology is the kind of the idea of using again, discussions with spirits. So again, using the different EVP sessions, collecting enough evidence to kind of paint a picture past what's known historically. So I know later on we're going to talk about the Civil War, and in the Civil War, most people know about the, again, the Battle of Gettysburg. At Gettysburg is considered the high water mark of the Confederacy, the farthest north that the Confederates are able to push into the Union lines. And they have, during Pickett's charge, you can go out there today and see the copse of trees. You can see the high water mark. Well, we have found out through some research, through, again, diaries of soldiers, that high water mark, the highest that the Confederates ever pushed during the course of the battle, may be off by 200 yards. That there's actually a regiment that made a little past, again, Emmitsburg Road. And there's some great stories of paranormal researchers that are out there by the name of Patrick Burke that they go out there, they get these diaries, and they ask these soldiers, hey, did you fight here? Did you guys make it past these lines? So being able, by talking to the dead, you're able to paint a picture of history past what we know now. So again, what's interesting about that is that using the, again, talking, these discussions with, the dead, maybe we can paint a better story historically. Does that make sense?
I agree with you in that part. I think it's a beautiful way to talk about history and the way that we can maybe fill in some of the blanks when it comes to what truly happened during very important historic times. But if we're doing that, there has to be a sense of that it's just more than energy that is coming through the ground, like a tape recording, or finding an 8-track that still plays for those of us who still remember what 8-tracks are. But nonetheless, there has to be some proof of the afterlife when it comes to this, because the messages are coming from somewhere. Right.
I absolutely agree. The problem is, again, what constitutes, because I think we were able, over the years, we were able to find some great instances of some really good, again, what we call evidence and data. And again, as I mentioned earlier in the show, that we would have these professors review it. And as I mentioned, they did not like showing anything that has to do with the K2 meter, anything that has to do with a ghost box, spirit box, whatever it may be. They were more about those experiences and being able to document them properly. So as a group, one of the things that we had to do was come up with a really strict methodology. So I'll give you an example. One of the first investigations we had conducted was in Cleveland at the Agora Theater. And one of the things that happened that night is we heard a whistle come from on the stage. Now, at the time, we did what most other ghost groups do, which I call the Scooby-Doo approach. Hey, you two go up there, you two go over there. Shaggy and Scooby are going to check out the basement while, Velma's off on her own exploring. And that's what seems like what happens. It's just an overall, I call it a free-for-all. These groups just go in there, and it's just mad chaos. Well, that's how we did our first investigation. And again, we captured this whistle from the stage. It was captured on numerous audio recorders, numerous camera feeds. And when we presented to the university, the first criticism the professors had were, how can you prove to us that nobody was on the stage? Well, here, watch all these different camera angles. Again, how can you prove that there's no one on the stage? And so, again, we had to sit there and go back and really focus on our methodology and come up with a way where we can show these professors, beyond reasonable doubt, I can prove it to you that no one was on that stage. And that's how we ran all the investigations afterwards. So, getting back to your original question there, it's, over the years, we're able to come up with these great pieces of evidence for, even while some of these professors. But is that enough to answer the question? It's no. It's, again, just makes you scratch your head and go, well, what is it then? And so that's the problem with this field, is that, again, you might have all these great different things, but what's doing it, we don't know. Could we ever know? In the future, I think, but not, now it's just, again, just pokes more and more questions.
So what are those questions? What is the ultimate mystery here for you, Gene?
Again, the ultimate mystery is what we're dealing with. It's funny, even something simple as, the term ghost has so many different definitions and meaning. Are we dealing with, in the terms of the Catholic sense, are we dealing with someone that's stuck in between worlds? Are they in purgatory? Are we dealing with somebody that's just wandering? Again, what is a ghost? What's those different, how are they communicating with us? Again, John Tenney's famous quote, do ghosts wear underwear? If we see a ghost, how come we're seeing him wearing full garb? How is that able to happen? Even though you may experience even a sound, how do they produce that sound? We've had an example happen where we asked for a door slam. We captured the sound of a door slamming, but when you look back on the visual feed, there is nothing. There's no door slamming. So where did that come from? So it's almost, again, every time something happens, it's like, okay, well, something's going on here, but how and why and how are they able to do it? So it's, again, one experience can lead into those the various questions I just brought up there.
Yes, I can totally see where you're going. Jose, in regards to the big debate as to what ghosts are, there is so many different outcomes in the paranormal. How are people supposed to, in your opinion, figure out what the hell a ghost is if we can't even decide on what we're investigating?
Well, I mean, that's an excellent question, but it's at least I think it's something that at least when you have experience with it, it's we at least have a general sense of what a ghost may be. But for them, maybe for somebody, they've just heard of a ghost, they've seen the TV shows, then they think it just maybe that white hue figure walking around. But for some it may just be a voice talking through a recorder. It may be it just may be something that something in their family. Maybe it's a family member that reminds them they're different different objects or different phenomena that happen. And I think honestly it may be different for other people. And since we have experience with it, we have a little bit more of an idea and experience of really what makes up this idea of ghosts. But I think for everybody there's a lot of different different ways and different factors that go into it. So
Eugene, I want to ask you here a question, because coming from a religious side of paranormal investigation, if the Bible and other religious texts do prove that, there are ghosts. I mean, you think of the Holy Ghost. So obviously the paranormal is in the Bible. The paranormal is in other written religious scripture. Why are so many religious people afraid of looking at the paranormal and thinking it's all demonic, thinking that it is all evil, and that it shouldn't be something that is tampered with? Because these writings obviously prove that the paranormal is alive and well in religious scripture.
Right, exactly. And one of the most famous, if you want to consider a ghost story, is the story of Lazarus coming back from the dead. And also with that, as you mentioned, there is a lot of discussion too about Jesus being the ultimate exorcist and casting out demons. I think the problem though is that it has to do with a lot with these shows. All these shows really stem on this belief again, and demons are everywhere. The other day I was at the barber, and they're asking, "Oh, what are you doing this weekend?" The topic of the paranormal came up. They're like, "Oh, I think there's a demon in my aunt's house. There's just all this doors are slamming around." So again, that they think that automatically, because they watch these shows, that anything has to do with maybe some unknown ghost activity, it's a demon automatically. And I think people are afraid of that. And that's why, again, it creates this bad stigma again. And so I know even when I worked for the state of Ohio, and there was a woman that was there that was really, really religious. She did a lot of the different youth programs. She was involved in like soup kitchens and just very involved with the church. And she did not like me talking about anything with my paranormal adventures or experiences. So again, she thought it was witchcraft. I think even with religious people, that if they don't know what it is or they don't have an understanding of it, again, they just put it in that witchcraft area, and then they get afraid and they don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Is that paranoia or is that true belief? Because the way I look at it is, after all the shows I have done, and if I include my personal beliefs in this as well, and kind of mix the two together into a potpourri of whatever it is. I just wanted to use the word I just wanted to use the word potpourri. But you know, when I mix it all together, I tend to think that a lot of this talk and this fear of the paranormal is man-made. It's not religious made or spiritually made. Right. It's man-made because the doctrines are all man-written. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's rubbing off on people here on a negative connotation. What is your thoughts, Eugene?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see what you're coming from. Again, it's just this paranoia of where I think, early on, especially with like the different pagan beliefs, I think you can even get down the argument of, again, Christianity versus like paganism, if you will, where a lot of the pagan beliefs that were misunderstood were written off as witchcraft. Just the same thing with, again, where, these paranormal topics are just easily written off, and I think there's this paranoid belief where deep down, it's funny because I've asked fellow parishioners, I've asked, do you believe in, that we have a soul? Absolutely. Do you believe in ghosts? No. Well, I mean, it's like it's like I don't understand how that makes sense, and I think for people, like, again, they're willing to believe that, hey, we have purpose in life, that we move on, but this idea of being stuck behind or not knowing what that is, again, creates some paranoia. It creates some uneasiness. Again, we're afraid of what we don't know, and I think that is the biggest problem here.
I'm laughing right now because Tim from Deep Talk actually put on Twitter a picture. I'm not sure if it's him or not, in a St. Louis Blues uniform.
Oh, my gosh.
He's waving the St. Louis Blues flag pretty heavy right now. Pretty heavy.
Tell them the Jackets got them this year. They got their name. We're making it personal.
Exactly. See, I still remember back in 2007 where the entire Blues lineup was wiped out by sickness and the flu, and the Canucks beat them 4-2, I believe.
Good.
It was awesome.
Good.
It was awesome.
The Blues are okay to me. I have no special feelings towards the Blues. But, hey, at least it ain't Detroit or Pittsburgh. We don't want to talk about those guys.
Well, Detroit's playing for draft picks. Pittsburgh's still in there because of that Crosby guy. He's so damn good.
Yes.
He's so damn good.
He is very good. He is very talented. And, but it's funny, those what they call those tuxedo birds. Again, we don't like them around these parts.
Well, I don't blame you. Getting back to the ghost hunting thing, when it comes to the paranormal, you guys seem to be pretty focused on what you're trying to prove. Okay, and that is some sort of afterlife on the other side. What it is, we don't know. There's a lot of questions to be answered. When you look at other paranormal teams, and I'm not trying to spite them or anything like that, do you find that your style coincides with a lot of paranormal teams, or do you find that you guys are, kind of original and not falling into the same storylines or the same habits that every other team seems to have?
No, that's a great question. That's something that we've explored early on. So I did some research early on just to see how many paranormal groups are in the state of Ohio. There's over 1,000 some organizations in Ohio. And I asked, when we got the group going, what do we want to do that's different? Because, a lot of groups are in it, for the right reasons. Most are not. I always make the joke that there's, every team wants to be the next ghost hunters and the next, ghost adventurers crew. The paranormal field, as we know, there's no degree to say that I'm a paranormal investigator. There's no certification. Anyone, especially these shows, make it seem like that, again, you're blue collar by day and having a normal job, but at night you're a paranormal investigator. I mean, it's fascinating because, someone like Nick Groff was a wedding DJ. Or a wedding photographer. Zach Bagans was a DJ. You got the ghost hunters, obviously, were working for that plumbing group. So, again, because there's this idea that anyone can be, everyone and their brother wants to become a paranormal investigator. What makes us unique is, again, our methodology. I cannot stress that enough. As I mentioned earlier on, most teams, again, go into a haunted location and it's a free-for-all. Versus we are very, very rudimentary in what we do. We are one of the few teams that go in there that when we do an investigation, there's several ways we approach it. One, we want to research the history. We spend a lot of time on the history. And then what we do is we formulate what we call our game plan. So when we go into a location, we usually try to get a map of that location if it's possible. If not, we try to study up on as much as possible. We can kind of put in mind how we want to structure it. What we like to do is we separate our, if let's say we got 10 people going to the Ohio State Reformatory in Mansfield, we designate 2 teams of 5. So again, taking that 10 down into 2 groups. We call them Team Alpha, Team Charlie. What we then do is we structure out how we want to do the investigation. So we look at some of the different hot spots. And what we want to do is we want to rotate in and out. So we are very complex when we put together, again, our game plan. So what we'll do is, as an example, in Mansfield, there's the West Cell Block, East Cell Block, Solitary Confinement, and Administration. So what we'll do is we'll have Team Alpha in the West Cell Block, Team Charlie in Administration. We want the 2 teams to be as far apart as possible from each other, the idea being that there's no cross-contamination whatsoever. The other thing that we'll try to do is we try to, again, we know that psychology is a huge part of this. So what we do is we have intervals. So we'll have, investigate for 45 minutes. Then we all come back to the break room, clear our minds, drink some coffee. That way, we're not overstressed. Not too scared if something's going on. Again, being able to clear your mind. And then what we do is we do, again, a second interval elsewhere. And what we like to do is we like to let those areas rest. So what I mean by that is maybe we'll put some gear in there, but we've been told before, and we found out, a lot of teams, again, they're going to go in a location, they're going to free-for-all. So we'll use Mansfield again. Someone go in the West Cell Block, try to do some EVP sessions. Then someone else is there 5 minutes later trying to do another EVP session. And if there's spirits in there, they're going to be at a certain point being wondering, hey, would you stop bothering me? It's not a circus act. You want me to turn these lights on? You want me to yell on this device? You want me to turn this K2 meter and do these different hits and stuff? It's like, these people going are demanding all these different things. And, again, it kind of drains the energy. We've actually found out, from doing a lot of our research that when we leave an area, stuff can still happen. We can almost initiate the ball rolling. And then when we leave, we find out we capture some evidence later on. So our biggest thing is that we want to kind of create this rotation where, again, it comes down to that question I had for you earlier, or that we were asked earlier, which was, how can you prove beyond reasonable doubt that you're the only ones, that there was a whistle coming from the stage and no one was up there? We took that really to heart. And so now what we're able to do is show these professors that, hey, there was no one in West Cell Block. How do we know? Here's the itinerary that we followed. Here's all the camera footage proving that as well. And then what we also did, too, to make it even further unique, is that I mentioned to you there's 2 teams of 5, Team Alpha, Team Charlie. In those teams, the 5 individuals have a designated role. So one individual is a photographer. Their goal is to go in there and take as many photos as possible. I tell them to take 2,000 photos during an investigation. That's fine. The idea of approaching like a crime scene, where you go in there, you take some large picture shots, zooming in as you go, and then taking a lot of pictures of us, proving that where we are standing is indeed, where we are at that moment. The second person is going to be the one that's behind the camera, the one filming us the entire time, keeping us all in the same shot. Then we have the third individual, which is what we call the EVP technician, the one that's going to be carrying on the audio recorder. They're going to be the ones that are going to be talking during the EVP sessions. The fourth person is the recorder, which was usually Jose, which is keeping tabs and notes the entire time throughout the investigation. Here's where we're at this hour, again, kind of documenting, having a written record. And then the fifth person is an independent observer. Because as I mentioned, everyone's got jobs. Well, sometimes stuff happens and no one else notices it. That's why you want to have someone that's independently looking around so you can keep an eye on things in case they may be noticing something while no one else is. Does that all make sense?
And would you turn in those type of results to the professors at the university as we got about 2 minutes before we have to go to break here? What is the responses from the professors after you are projecting their evidence? Are they blown away? Are they scratching their head in unknown anticipation? Are they shrugging it off? What is it?
So at first, they would try to come up with as much reasonable arguments as possible. But the more and more we got better at it, we're, again, proving exactly where we're at and showing them all that detail I just explained to you, the more and more they started to, be wowed and not have questions for us in terms of proving it, but more of questions like, what is this? What's going on here? So it was kind of interesting how the dynamic changed from a very skeptical approach at first, where now as we've gotten better at it, it's become more of less skeptical and more inquiring.
Jose, we haven't heard from you in a while here. Let's bring you back in. What do you think, or what do you like about the professors' responses to the evidence that you are bringing forward to the university?
Well, I think because we've, like Gene said, we've kind of almost gotten it down, with the methodology and the way that we can present it. It's really hard to really find those, arguments against it. And it's almost like, how you do all this, almost like how for a class, for one of their classes, you would do, a whole report, and then you have to, go in and write, when you're writing an essay, you have to go in and defend your points, and honestly, you have to try to, argue which, the way your methodology, the way that you want to present it. And I think we got that, with the way that we split up the group and the different tasks, it honestly showed our dedication to making sure that, we were all, involved, as well as, doing, research. I mean, honestly, everybody was doing their share in the research for it. And I think it was great to be able to, present to these professors and hand in, these handwritten notes. Like whenever I wrote them down, I typed them up, really nice with time codes and bullet points of what we experienced at that time. And I think it was, really great to see an actual written record where they could actually see, wow, these guys, went into detail. And I just found that to be very satisfying. And it was something that we talk about quite often, to say, wow, we really got good at this, and we've really made the most of it. And any time we are able to present about it or hand in our work, I think we feel really good going forward, because we know that it's something that we put passion into. It's something we did. We've created it, that that methodology behind it. We did the research, and we've really showed our basically our words are speaking off the page. So I think it's very satisfying.
Right. Guys, I'm going to get you to hold on right now as we're going to go to our first break of the night. Ghost of the Great White North happens the third Wednesday of every month. And hopefully Mike Morin will be back next month with me. But we got Gene Clarence, Jose Alexander Esparza with us tonight. We're talking ghosts out of Ohio. We're going to get into Gettysburg next hour. I hope you sit back and enjoy, because it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll be back right after this.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty, from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Hi Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm going to take you for a ride every Sunday night on Spaced Out Sundays. I'm going to set up your week with some strange tales from across North America, from psychic readings, Sasquatch, UFOs, to the most haunted locations. Come join me at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, and let's get weird together. I'd love for you to join me. Spaced Out Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
There's news, and there's The Encounter. This is Spaced Out Radio News Director Everett Thiemer inviting you to check out The Encounter. Our half-hour news segment every Monday through Friday night is different compared to what you're used to. Our goal is to bring you the weird, strange, and interesting stories the mainstream tends to leave out, and stories that will make you scratch your head in disbelief. The Encounter can also be found at spacedoutradio.com and on our Facebook page, SOR The Encounter. Come give us a read.
We're bringing scientific thought to the paranormal. Hi there, this is Spaced Out Radio scientist Chris Cogswell. Join me, Chris Zuger, and Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month, where we break down the who from the woo when it comes to everything paranormal. We'll investigate and try to bring sensible answers to those straight and sometimes outlandish questions people have. Hey, not everything has an answer, but we'll do our best. Listen in to Reality Paranormal only on Spaced Out Radio.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Morin. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. Tomorrow night on the show, you're not going to want to miss it. Jamie Sexton is back with a jam-packed edition of The Rebel Planet. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We say hello to everyone listening in on the SOR Radio Network and Deep Talk Radio. And don't forget, if you're looking for our archives, they are free on our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. In return, all I ask is you hit that subscribe button. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Isotherm Bros. Isotherm Bros is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our store, read up on the encounter online, and so much more. Don't forget, right now, tickets are on sale for the first annual Caribou Paracon, presented by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers, September 28th through 30th. All you have to do is go to questers.ca. That's questers.ca. Click on the fall conference, get your tickets. You can listen to speakers and hang out with people like Grant Cameron, Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, myself, Eric Cooper, Mike Morin, Michael W. Hall, and many, many more. It's going to be a great weekend. We want to see as many Spaced Out Radio listeners up here in beautiful 108 Mile Ranch as possible. Tonight we are talking with Gene Claridge and Jose Esparza. They are a part of a really, really interesting paranormal group out of Ohio called the John Carroll Paranormal Research Group. It is fantastic. And these guys and their team literally are trying to blend together what exactly the paranormal is. They're just not ghost hunters. They are researchers. And that's something that I think is really lacking in this entire field. So we're lucky to have them tonight on Ghosts of the Great White North. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having us, Dave.
You guys have really, really pushed the limits and going to a lot of the more popular places, you know, that are known to be hauntings. And we're going to get into Gettysburg here for a little bit because the Civil War is such a huge, huge part of the formation of the United States. And, you know, Gettysburg is really where it all happened. That was the big one, the grand poobah of them all. And there was so much death and so much carnage, not just by dying on the battlefield, but dying in the hospitals because, you know, they weren't even, the doctors back in the day weren't even washing their equipment. And the disease and the funguses that killed young men, it was horrific. I would never want to be there. One of the issues, and I don't want to start it off negatively, but one of the issues I think we have in the paranormal is that we tend to, as paranormal enthusiasts, go to all of these so-called hotspots. Why did you focus on them rather than, say, more little-known areas? Gene?
So we actually did a big combo of both because it's funny, even when it comes to buildings, you know, everyone talks about all the activity happens here. Well, we've noticed that activity, you know, happens all throughout the building. Again, if these are truly spirits of people, spirits can wander and move around. They're not just going to sit in one spot all day. And so we actually found, you know, stuff can happen when you travel in between, again, what we call, you know, hot spots, you know, from one spot to the next. One of the best examples of that was we were in it's called Farnham Manor. It's in Richfield, Ohio, and we were actually just all in the break room. Again, break room's not really considered a haunted spot, and one of the hot spots, if you will. And we're all just having some coffee, just kind of recapping, refreshing, talking about what we experienced a little bit during that 45 minutes interval of when we were investigating. When we started hearing these loud crashing noises. So again, these spirits, you know, they're not going to just sit because they know it's a hot spot. So they'll move around. So we actually will look at, again, the hot spots because of all the reported claims, but we, you know, keep eyes and ears open at all times.
Jose, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think when it comes to hot spots, you know, you think of it, it's, you know, that's you know, people say hot spot and you're immediately drawn, you know, to that location because, this is where I'm going to experience something. This is, you can almost get, some people think, you can almost guarantee something's going to happen because it's considered a hotspot. And they may have had people who said things, it's, well, I experienced this there, but unfortunately, not all the hotspots, have activity all the time. So, like, Eugene pointed out, which is a great point, things move around and I think we had a very interesting, if I can just, kind of share a quick story. We actually had Perryville battlefield. We had an investigation, and we actually investigated the John Dye House, which is actually a Civil War hospital. And we were, it's an enclosed location, so it's mostly contained. However, there was supposed hotspots, around the house. But what we really found out is the location where you least had expected it is where the activity came from. And, we actually heard some footsteps above on the second floor, which it was not considered by at least the experts there with the other team we were with. They didn't consider that the most, biggest hotspot location. But it's I think it's constantly moving, and that's a really great, really good idea. Is it can move. Hotspots can change. It's not just going to be one stagnant location, and when you can really just really take in the whole location and do move from different location to location. I think you can even create new hotspots, and maybe get some great evidence. Maybe not the supposed definite hotspot that people supposedly had said that was there. So,
Gene, let's go to you here for a second as we start to break down Gettysburg. Mm-hmm. What about Gettysburg makes it so haunted, in your opinion?
Just the absolute carnage that took place there. So actually, a little fun fact for you. The correct pronunciation, which we didn't know about until this year, is actually Gettysburg. The founder is James Geddes. So we know that from the family that's still there today that it's actually pronounced Gettysburg. So we're all about education, so definitely want to let you know about that so we can continue to get that message out to the rest of the world here that, again, something simple as that is the correct way to pronounce it. But getting back to the question, so Gettysburg obviously was hell on earth for 3 days in July of 1863. But you got to remember that hell extends past the days of the battle. So if you look at the numbers, there's an estimated of 51,000 casualties, which is the entire Vietnam War in the duration of 3 days. So just having you got to think there's just so much different elements here. All the soldiers that are wounded, the cries on the battlefield, the cries of the wounded, still even after the battle. There's a huge rain on July 4th, so all the mud, all those shallow graves being, all the bodies coming up. And a lot of people don't remember. Everyone's so focused on the military aspect of things, but what about the people there? The civilians are in the town. Again, these places of battle are farms, they're houses. And again, there's the human element in terms of civilians that we often overlook. So one of the examples that we like is at Gettysburg, there's the Lydia Leicester House. This house was used as the Union headquarters. So it was the nerve center for the Union Army as General George Gordon Meade made it his headquarters. And during the course of the battle, this house is totally damaged. It was a farm, so all the rail lines were ruined and split. There's bodies of animals like horses all around littered. Not to mention, too, the damage caused from the shells bursting overhead. And so this woman that made this her home comes back to find her whole house ransacked, destroyed. She can't drink the well water because of the fact that it's been now contaminated. So again, there's this human element, and there's just so much emotion. And that's the other thing you got to think about too, is that all that emotion that is expelled there in that course of 3 days, all that agony from being, again, injured or as you're dying. But think about, I always give that example of there's a soldier that makes his way all the way up from Texas to march all the way up in the Devil's Den, when in a second his life is taken. And it could be as simple as a pull of a lanyard of a cannon to, again, being shot. So, again, this youthful kid that everything is now gone. You lose that memory of, his family back home. And it's just, there's a question, everyone thinks in terms of war, this glorious war. You got music in the background. You're going to have this perfect soldier's death. I mean, that's not the case for a lot of these guys. These guys, die instantly in pain. The question on their mind, will they be even remembered? Again, this is in a time before dog tags were invented. So something as simple as their identity, as they're dying, they're going to know that, their family's going to know about them. There's a chance that their body is going to get so disfigured from rotting in the sun that they may not even be totally remembered and just be reported as missing. So there's just a lot of energy at these places, again, in terms of civilians and soldiers, that something's got to be left behind, especially with that hell that town went through in July of 1863.
You bring up a good point there in regards to the amount of war dead. Like, some of them may not even have known they have died. And for a lot of people who visit there, they still swear that they hear the battlefield going on, and the battles, the ringing of the cannons, the firing of the muskets. And there's a lot of people who feel that maybe the battle is still raging on a different plane or in a different dimension. When you go there, how do you tell whether or not there are ghosts who know they are dead and that it's a couple hundred years after the fact? I mean, this is serious stuff here.
I think this gets into a battle between, again, what we categorize in between intelligent versus residual hauntings. Some of the situations in Gettysburg, again, is going to be like seeing a battalion of Union soldiers in the wheat field. Again, there's no purpose. It's like, again, a scene playing out in front of you. There's no intelligent contact. It's just a scene that's there and fades away. So, again, is that, do these guys know they're dead, or is it just echoes of the past rippling through? Versus, we were actually up on Culp's Hill this past September, which Culp's Hill is a part of the battlefield that's very neglected, which is surprising. And when most people think of Gettysburg, everyone thinks of the movie, and so those are the places that get the most attention, so like Little Round Top, Pickett's Charge. But Culp's Hill saw a lot of intense action. It was actually the area of the most sustained part of the battle of 7 hours, and actually 1/5 of all rounds fired at Gettysburg was fired on Culp's Hill. So this is a very important position. And we were there doing an investigation, Jose and I, this past September, and we were conducting a flashlight session. I know a flashlight session gets a lot of flack. People say, hey, it's the battery of the flashlight, or it's the bulb, what have you. But what was interesting was we were conducting a session near the 137th New York Volunteer Infantry and the 7th Ohio Volunteer Infantry, and I was asking, is it day 2? Is it July 2nd right now? Trying to see if the soldier was still stuck in that that time period, when we actually started hearing what sounded like cannons. And I started immediately asking, are we being fired upon right now? And what was interesting was the lights started responding, positively. Are we being fired upon by cannons right now? If so, can you turn on both lights? And both lights would come on. Is it Confederate, cannon fire? And what was interesting is that our audio recorders captured it. And immediately when we got back, we followed up with our due diligence. Again, going the extra mile. For some investigators, that's good enough that they got the audio and that's it. Life's grand. But we want to, again, go the extra mile. So, again, if we had to sit down and prove to Professor, here's what we found. So reached out to the Park Service, found out, no, there's no reenactments going on at that time of night. Reached out to the Gettysburg Police Department to see if there's any noise complaints, to see if there's any sounds of discharged gunfire that they responded to, which there was nothing. We reached out to the fire department to see if there's any firework displays, which there was none. So what was fascinating is that as you mentioned, again, we possibly have caught, cannons, which may suggest that the battle's still raging on in a different dimension. And what was really, really cool was the next day there was a ranger program, and we had captured the sound of cannons that was from a cannon reenactment that was being conducted in Seminary Ridge. And that cannon fire sounds very, very similar and a lot more closer range than what we captured the night before. So, again, when we were doing this flashlight session, long story short, the soldier was saying that we were being fired upon. So it's an intelligent response suggesting that, yes, the battle is still raging.
Jose, that has to be pretty eerie, knowing that here you are standing there on this plane and knowing that on some different level there are soldiers dying all around you again and again and again.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because actually, that investigation on Culp's Hill, that we thought that was, just a lot of, we could feel the energy up there. Gene and I both, with our experiences, we not just only experienced that flashlight session, hearing the cannons, but we also felt as though, because of the potential of that war still raging, we kept finding ourselves looking over our shoulder behind us. And we just couldn't help think that, possibly, are we in enemy lines? Are we actually enveloped in this battle? Are we surrounded right now, by the enemy? Are we on friendly lines? So it was a very eerie feeling. I definitely will categorize it as that. But I felt that's kind of what really we were able to really capture the element and really capture the moment. And I feel that's really what kind of sparked this this really strong passion and excitement for actually going to these battlefields, standing on the ground, this hollowed ground where these soldiers fought, and yes, the brutality, soldiers could be falling around us, but I feel like being at these battlefields and really capturing the landscape and having these paranormal opportunities, I feel like it's just something that is very unique, and it's we've always found the Civil War, based on the history, as we talked about earlier, history and the Civil War, or history and the paranormal, have a very, very close parallel, and we've used that as our as a great motivation, and Gettysburg was really kind of what capped it all off and what really led to us continuing our investigations to these other battlefields, and I think Gene would agree. This is just something that it's just so fascinating to really be feel like you're part of the battle and take in all this the nature and the whole battlefield has been preserved, so that way you can have it as a place of remembrance, but also have it as a paranormal could turn into a paranormal hotspot just at that location on that whole the whole area, and it's just so fascinating, and it's just really, it makes us really excited to continue the opportunity to do this, and it's something that's always going to be present in our minds.
This leads right into a question from one of our newer audience members, Joe. We call him New Joe because we seem to get a lot of Joes around. And he is
there's a lot of Joes.
He's asking, energy vibrates at different frequencies in relation to Gettysburg. Could the spirit attachment to the location be the spirits resonating vibrationally directly proportionate to the surroundings? And if that is true, what is required to modify that vibrational resonance to help them move on? Gene, you want to take a crack at that one?
Absolutely, I do. He brings an awesome question. And I think, especially at Gettysburg, there are so many stones. It's a very rocky terrain. But one of the best examples is Devil's Den, which, Devil's Den is a very, very huge boulders, very rocky. Actually, during the battle, they had a hard time burying soldiers because of the soil was too thin. So they just shove them between the different boulders. So a lot of people believe that there's so much energy they consider, if there's an area they consider a really, really good hotspot in Gettysburg, it's Devil's Den. And so that kind of begs, to Joe's point is, maybe these boulders are helping with, again, this energy and facilitating a lot more activity because of the surrounding environment with the boulders. Another point, too, is that a lesser-known battlefield, but equally as important, is Fredericksburg, Virginia. Fredericksburg, Virginia sits on the Rappahannock River. As many investigators know, water is a critical component to the paranormal field. They say it's a huge caveat for allowing for energy. And Fredericksburg arguably is actually one of the most haunted areas in the United States, even more so than Gettysburg. Reason being is because this area is really, really old. A lot of connections to George Washington. Supposedly he, threw in the silver dollar into the river there, chopped down the cherry tree. He lives, his birthplace home's not too far from there. Fredericksburg saw 4 major battles all within 15 miles. So, again, we talked about Gettysburg earlier having 51,000 casualties. Between these 4 major battles, you're talking at over 100,000 casualties. So one of the reasons, they consider, again, Fredericksburg more, one of the most haunted areas, and it has to do with that river, the Rappahannock River. So again, having not only, the energy that Joe spoke about, but having, different features, physically, such as water, boulders, and rocks, I think that has a huge importance in terms of playing into paranormal activity.
So when it comes to the energy then, do you think that energy can ever be dispersed? Because, some of these soldiers, I'm sure, if they are fighting, Jose, on a different plane or a different dimension, whatever it could be, I'm pretty sure
Right.
there are a lot of them that would like to stop fighting, maybe just want to go home.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like there's with the idea of the energy. I feel like there's some that want to be remembered, so they continue to constantly want to fight. Some of them are still living in that in that battle. They're still continuing that fight. They may be in a different dimension, and but they are still enveloped in the battle. And and I'm sure there's also soldiers, like you said, that may just want to throw in the towel, put the musket down, turn around and go home. And I feel like the energies can definitely spread across the battlefield. Most of the battlefields, especially at Fredericksburg, and even more specifically at the area near Prospect Hill and the battlefield, the Confederate trenches there. You had the Union side advancing on the Confederate and advancing across open ground, and to just imagine the vast landscape that could capture all this energy. I'm sure it dispersed. It's dispersed at all the way different ends of the battlefield, and I definitely think there's an opportunity for it to the energy to continue to be passed on and continue to come up. But I think it's just kind of, it depends on possibly that soldier who may be still fighting. Maybe that soldier who doesn't want to have any more any more fighting or any more contact. That's why you may not get energy in that one spot, but you may get it in another. So I definitely think that there's potential for the energy to be spread around that way.
Well, the other thing, too, is, and I'm going to use an old cliche from the 80s here, is it live or is it Memorex? Is it the land that has recorded the sounds? Or, Gene, do you believe that maybe this is a battle still raging in a different dimension? Because we definitely know, if you believe in heaven or hell, that there is probably no war going on in heaven. Could this be their own personal hell that they are stuck in, or is it the land that has recorded these sounds?
I'm actually going to say it's a combination of both. I'm not saying that just to be political here, but because of some of the findings and experiences that we had. So we actually had a situation come up this past May. We were in what's known as the Bloody Angle in Spotsylvania Courthouse, Virginia. This area is probably considered one of the most bloodiest parts of any Civil War battlefield in North America. It saw 22 hours of intense hand-to-hand combat, very, very gruesome. Soldiers talked about at the end of the battle that these soldiers were so unrecognizable from all the bullets passing through that one Union soldier said that his officer, the only thing that was left of him, a 200-pound man, the only thing that was left of him was a quarter of an inch of his watch. That's how gruesome some of these battles are. And when we were there, we were conducting a flashlight session near the Confederate trenches. And I had asked, are you married? If you're married, can you turn on both of the lanterns? Again, these soldiers don't know what flashlights are, so we call them lanterns. And again, both of the flashlights came on. We asked it again to confirm. They still stayed on. And I said, if you miss your family, can you go ahead and turn off the lights? And the lanterns didn't turn off. And I asked it again because I think that's an easy question. I said, do you feel a sense of duty to your comrades, and that's why you stay here? And the both lights turn on immediately. So again, for this soldier, is he still fighting? Is this spirit still fighting, and that's why he doesn't want to go home? Is he stuck? Does he even know he's dead? We don't know, and I think that's the beauty of it. Again, some of these soldiers, again, they have a lifetime of memories just to be totally ended in a moment in which, again, someone pulls a trigger, someone pulls a lanyard of a cannon. So let's just say that person's, maybe that person's not fighting. Maybe he's stuck on his own. We don't know. So I think it's, again, a little bit, a combination of maybe it's the land recording, again, this energy. I mean, this huge explosion of energy. You got to think it's one big explosion when this battle happens. All these people screaming and yelling. Again, there is no glory in war. It is, gut-wrenching when you read these personal accounts. So when you have this huge explosion, maybe, yes, the land does record it, but individually on these soldiers, maybe some of them are still fighting, maybe some of them are just wandering around lost. I know there's a famous story about a spirit of a soldier in Marie's Heights, which is in Fredericksburg. There was 4 divisions tried to assault this Marie's Heights, the sunken road at the stone wall, and one of the soldiers had drinking from a canteen of his comrade, thinking he was dead because he needed water. Turns out this guy was still alive, and there's some speculation that his spirit still roams because he feels so guilty for drinking his comrade's water that day. So again, there's a whole slew of different things that can come up here. It's not. I don't think it's just one answer. I think it's a combination of several.
Joe, do you think that the ground is just a one giant tape recording, or do you think it is other dimensions? Pardon me, Jose. I went English on you there, my friend. I apologize.
Well, that's fine because I still figured it was me based on that. But I do think I guess you could in one in some sort of way say that the Earth is a recorder. I mean, there's just numerous with all the bodies that fell on the ground, and all the the pain, the agony, and all the the blood and the tears and all the scattered equipment, that it was spread all over the battlefields. I feel like that could definitely be something that is captured and as a snapshot in time. And I definitely think definitely the emotional parts of things can definitely play into it. And that's I feel like that's probably something that when you actually go to that location and you're getting this these possible responses, this could be again, it could just be all the emotion. It could be these soldiers trying to reach out to you and let you know that this is something how they're feeling. This is real to them, and they want to have their want to be remembered. And I definitely feel with the way the war played out and all the sacrifice and bloodshed that that happened, it's definitely possible for basically to be captured in different times, and it's something that is definitely a interesting point to think about. Is it really the Earth a giant Earth recorder, and that it definitely something that could be explored further down the road as we continue to experience things and continue on this road on the battlefields.
Gene, I want to bring you in.
Dave, I want to.
Yeah, go ahead. Go right ahead.
Yep, I want to add something here, and it's actually a quote, and I think this actually is a great quote for this, for your question. This quote comes from Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain. He is the famous commander of the 20th of Maine. He's in the movie Gettysburg. He's the one that's played by Jeff Daniels that has that famous scene on a little round top in which he fixes bayonets and charges the Confederates and saves the day for the Union Army. And after the battle, because again he's considered one of the major heroes of the Battle of Gettysburg, he came out to the dedication of the Maine Monument, and he had a speech. And in this speech, he has a very, very powerful statement that I think I like to share with everybody. And that is, "In great deeds, something abides. On great fields, something stays. forms change and pass, bodies disappear, but spirits linger to consecrate ground for the vision place of souls. So I think that's a great quote that kind of helped answer this question here, which is, Mr. Chamberlain is suggesting that, because these ordinary men did extraordinary things in extraordinary circumstances, that something stays to consecrate the ground in which they fought and died on. So I think that's something that maybe kind of helps answer the question a little bit as well.
There is a huge debate going on in the paranormal world as to whether or not people should try and cross over those spirits so they can finally stop fighting. Mm-hmm. I know people who have tried that, and I'm not too sure I agree with that because there's so much about the other side that we really don't know. What is your thoughts, Gene, on the fact that there are people there almost weekly trying to cross spirits over? And do you think those spirits are going, as you said, they don't want to leave their comrades? The comrades are more important than their own families.
Right. So I would say it's a pretty loaded question there, and that's obviously a good thing. But I think, in terms of crossing over, if they want to be crossed over, great. I think that, I don't know, do they have that choice on the other side? We don't know that for sure. However, for me, my biggest thing, again, is I want to get to know these guys' stories. I'm not going out to cross them. If that's what people want to do, as long as they have respect, I think that's great. I mentioned earlier about Devil's Den, and Jose and I made our way out to Devil's Den 2 years ago. Again, considered one of the most biggest hot spots. It's been so well written by author Mark Nesbitt, and everyone and their brother that night seemed to flock out to Devil's Den. And what we heard and saw was atrocious. These people are running out there, playing Pokemon Go, screaming at these spirits, taking photos, and they had no respect for what these men fought and died for. So again, if people want to cross over spirits, again, have that respect for these guys. Again, these people are humans, and I think they gave the ultimate sacrifice for their beliefs. Again, whether it's Union or Confederate, again, these people gave their lives, and I think that's something that people forget, that you're dealing with a human. And you're dealing with a human soul. So I think as long as you have that respect, it's fine. It's funny for us. Again, we want to really get to know these stories because we were in Spotsylvania, like I mentioned a while back, and a lot of people just go to this beautiful preserved Civil War battlefield. It's absolutely gorgeous. And unless you really get to know the story and find the lay of the land, you won't know about the horrors that took place there because it's just so beautiful. And a lot of people just run through there all day. They go jogging. They don't even pay attention that, again, this is a historical area. And so when we did our EVP sessions, we talked to these spirits like, hey, we want to know your story because I'm sure people walk through here all day long and no one talks to you. What story, what message do you want to share with us, whether it's to a loved one back home or just in general? So I think there's a lot of stories to be told, and I think that should be the primary reason that people want to talk to these ghosts, not necessarily just to cross them over, but see what they have to say. What story do they want to share?
Jose, cross them over or leave them be?
Well, I personally, I'm right along with Jeannie. I really just want to know the story. So, I really want to capture the story so that we can share it with the world. So I'm not necessarily concerned with crossing soldiers over. I really am just I'm a lot more interested in really finding find out their history and finding out the individuality of all these these soldiers. There's a lot of stories to be told, and as Gene pointed out, people have crossed through there, many times a day, and it just may be some nice jogging location because it's out in nature. But then when you really get out there on the battlefield, you can read one placard, and it can tell you a whole part of the story. But then the beauty of it is you have all these different placards for different parts of the battlefield, and to think about the different soldiers who fought in these areas, and for the different ways that they fought, and the different reasons why they were there. I feel it's really, really interesting to and crucial to really try to find out more of the stories of these men, because they didn't get to, some of them really didn't get to have the opportunity to go home and really write about it or tell about it. We have a lot of writings from soldiers who were, in battle, who made it home, made it through the war, and you had the opportunity to write down their experiences. And, you read these and you're really blown away. Gene and I spend, hours upon hours reading these personal accounts, and it's just, really, it really tugs at the heartstrings just to see, how brutal this was, and just really trying to put yourself back in time and imagining yourself as a Civil War soldier looking across the battlefield and seeing all these, men fall around you and experience this horror firsthand. It's really something that is interesting, and to have the opportunity to investigate these battlefields and ask those questions, the questions most people don't ask, which we like to say, we like to ask about, their favorite, their low life back home, what's their favorite, type of, card game, what's their favorite type of beverage, what were their hobbies? We try to really get into the human element of things, and that's really, really important. So I guess, to really go back to the question, I would say definitely, I'm not definitely personally not about trying to cross, anybody over to the other side. I don't believe that's, my purpose. I believe we are supposed to, capture, their stories to be able to share that. So that's how I feel on the matter. And
I'm going to move on topics here coming up, but I want to get this point. At some point, and I realize paranormal tourism is a big revenue generator for Gettysburg, and I'm just wondering, at some point, do we as paranormal investigators need to leave these ghosts alone, because it could be confusing them a little bit more than what's going on in whatever their reality is at this time?
I don't think it's necessarily as much as confusion as, again, the idea of respect. As you mentioned, in Gettysburg, and if you went back to the early 90s, Mark Nesbitt was the only one that was having any kind of tours. You walk down the line of shops today, you could probably count over 10 or 15 different organizations that have their own walking tours or, little, different ghosts. The tourism that you mentioned is absolutely just blown out of proportion. And I think the problem is that, again, there's no respect for, again, that these are people. Everyone just is out there for, it seems like ghost stories. And it's very sad. The National Park Service out there that does a wonderful job of preserving the land, so to get out the historical side of things, absolutely frowns upon the paranormal tourism. I know a lot of the rangers that I speak with out there think it's wrong, because they think that people flock out to Gettysburg not necessarily for the history, but now for the paranormal side of things. And then, as I mentioned, we saw firsthand how wrong things have gone, where, again, you get these people that are just climbing over the boulders in Devil's Den, shouting obscenities and treating, again, these spirits. So it was so appalling that, it's like, what do you guys realize that, again, you're talking to again, souls of people that fought here, that gave their life, people that endured such hardships that that it's unfathomable. And so I think, again, that it's not necessary. It's definitely, I think, because you're getting away from the historical side of things, I think that's where you have the issue. The history should come first, and then paranormal second, in terms of, again, these are people. Let's get to know their stories and their actions instead of just focusing necessarily on paranormal tourism.
And that's a difficult one, though, because you kind of have to you kind of have to feel bad for the fact that these guys are that's their home. You know what I'm saying? That's their home. Yes. That's where they're from. That's where they lived. That's where they died. And it's difficult to try and accommodate that. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I think again because the paranormal field, there's no code of conduct or code of ethics that people follow. again, it's a whole open field where, again, that there doesn't have to be that respect because there's nothing, enforcing it. But I think, as you mentioned, that again, these people have every right. These spirits have every right. They fought over the ground. They gave the ultimate sacrifice. We should honor that and treat them properly for doing so.
Mm-hmm. Jose, would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. Yes, I would definitely agree. And, I think for myself, I personally believe that, the ghost tours that are going on nowadays, I feel like it's just become such a marketized idea, and it's become something as, a business. Some of these locations some of these, shops that are doing these ghost tours, it's become, one of their big, money makers. And, they might sell, memorabilia here on the side, but some of them are striving all for those tours. And I think that's, really where it comes into play, where the history is being lost here. It's, really about trying to create that culture, that paranormal culture, and trying to, have Gettysburg continue to have that, that label as a paranormal haven, if you want to say it that way. But I think it's definitely something that goes back to, the whole respect aspect, treating, these guys who fought as humans, going to the, harking back to the human element. And, I do understand that, at a certain extent, just like how we are, and nowadays, and, if somebody were to come and invade your space, you may not feel that it's, it's not welcomed, and it may be a little awkward, and to have so many, people, visiting there. But I feel like if you're respectful and you can continue to, realize, where you are, and continue to have that historical element and that remembrance, that sovereignty, for the sacrifice that they, that they gave, for their respective causes. I definitely believe that, it may be, like you said, it may be something that sometimes it could be an annoyance, or it could seem as an annoyance, but I feel, that's not what we're not trying to do. And but some of these paranormal tours, they just have become exploded, with different, different locations, and, sometimes even, tend to make up some of the stories even. And I feel like it's, not everything is, but there's definitely some things that they try to just make it all about the paranormal, and they lose the historical element.
Actually, I want to add something very important to this too. So, because of the paranormal tourism in Gettysburg, it is absolutely, it adds to that stigma of the paranormal field. What I mean by that is this: again, you got the National Park Service that's all about the history side of things. And I remember I was listening to a ranger program that was being conducted, and during the program, there was, I guess, these ghost hunters are out on the, near the area they're conducting the program, and the ranger cracked a joke, and he said something, let's let them carry on with their seance over there, and he said something, I don't understand why people come out to Gettysburg to talk to dead people. That just seems so silly. He was talking down upon it. So again, you get these rangers that almost seem like they're fed up with it. The National Park Service is just fed up with the whole paranormal tourism that's going on, and I think that is further. You talk about this battle of, again, answering that big question that we talked about in the first hour of, what is there an afterlife? What's going on here? And that getting anywhere closer to answering that is ruined by parts of that paranormal tourism in the town of Gettysburg.
Do you think that has to do with the fact that, yes, it's popular, but let's face it, there are people out there who have zero respect when it comes to historic sites. They will do whatever it takes in order to get that evidence. It's all about them and their investigation. And I can see where these, rangers, park rangers, are getting fed up with it, because they're probably catching people in out-of-bounds areas, or, tearing up ground because some spirit said on a voice box that they're supposed to. It's got to be frustrating for them.
Absolutely. And the other thing too is that these park grounds, so these national military parks, they close So if after a certain hour, and it all depends on each area, and depending on the season, they close at certain times. So like I know at Gettysburg, they close at 10 p.m. If you're caught on the battlefields, the National Military Park after 10 p.m., you can get nailed with trespassing and can be prosecuted. These rangers, they don't look at you going out there in a positive aspect after dark. Again, they think are you relic hunting? Are you destroying these different monuments and memorials? As you know, there was a lot of news regarding the Confederate monuments a few years ago, and they got a lot of graffiti that goes on. So again, it goes even beyond the ghost thing too, where it's like if they catch you after the park closes, there can be some serious consequences. And it's funny because one of the rangers I'm close with said, he just caught up, a bunch of kids are, they're out there, trying to mock ghost hunters. Here we are live in the wheat field right now, and we're going to see if we can make contact, trying to be that next TV show. It's like, look, kids, pick up a history book instead of going out there trying to make it become the next YouTube sensation. So they're getting pretty fed up with it, like you said, especially when when you can't see it at night, you're destroying this hollowed ground and not paying proper respect to the soldiers.
Let's move back to your state in Ohio. And,
Yes.
Ohio always, I don't know why, it just messes with my head with everything that's weird and strange that's going on there. What the hell is with Ohio? Grassman, Frogman, aliens at Wright-Patterson, Bigfoot all over the place. You have the gamut there. Dogman's now running around the fields. People are being abducted. Men in black sightings. Ohio is screwed up, man. It's screwed up.
Yes.
Why?
A lot of people believe it's due to the proximity to the Great Lakes. Again, talking about water from earlier. In addition, all of the the Native American presence in Ohio, especially. So it's there's also been a lot of talk. The way it sits, with the Pennsylvania, with the different what's the different rock formations and stuff. So it's a very energy based area, and it's a little bit of ego here. Is I'm glad that we have such a great place that we're residing in, so many opportunities.
I know that, and I can understand and appreciate that, but it just makes no sense. It really doesn't.
I know. Maybe that's a little bit of a payback for having such a terrible football team. We may have a bad football team, but at least we professionally, at least we have a horrible football team, but at least we got it good when it comes to the paranormal.
Well, you know what? You went to that. Pardon me. Why is it? It's escaping my head right now. Give me 2 seconds. I had it written down. Where did I put it?
The Reformatory?
The Reformatory, yes. You guys went to the Reformatory to check that out. I don't know why I couldn't figure it out. Of course, after you say it, there it is, the Ohio State Reformatory. I mean, that's another downtrodden type area.
Yes, absolutely.
Scary.
It's a very historical area. Yeah, and it's funny because the Ohio State Reformatory is located in Mansfield, Ohio, but Mansfield has way more just beyond the Reformatory. They have the Bisman Building. There's a few other homes in the area. I mean, it's that whole area itself. It seems to be very active. And it's a very, like you said, it's a downtrodden area, but there seems to be there's an energy out there. You can definitely feel it. And the Reformatory is a really excellent place. I definitely encourage all your listeners, if they ever get the chance, to make their way out there, because it is a beautiful location, a very interesting history behind the location, and it's also very, very haunted.
Tell us about some of the stories that are there.
So at the Reformatory, most people that go there or read about it, they know that the solitary confinement is considered the hot spot. There are many parts of the prison. There's the West Cell Block, East Cell Block. East Cell Block is the highest standing, freestanding jail structure in the world. 6 tiers up. It's actually completely contained, meaning there's like bars that run up the whole side of it. You can tell the difference between West Cell Block and East Cell Block because of that. West Cell Block, the tiers are opened up, versus East Cell Block, again, there's bars that go all the way up. The reason being is to prevent prisoners from pushing other prisoners over the railings or trying to commit suicide. They also have even like the administration offices have activity in them. So even parts of necessarily, again, the jail portion or the prison portion of things, but even the administration offices, the chapel, is also, Jose actually has a wonderful personal experience that he had when he was in the chapel. So, I mean, the prison itself is massive and has many different components. It's not necessarily just the different cells, but there's, again, many parts of that building have haunted activity going on.
What makes you investigate a reformatory? Because let's face it, there's not a lot of sanity in a place like that.
Right. One of the reasons being is because, again, it's one of those locations that has a very violent but also a very sad history. And, again, we want to approach this from multiple angles where we want to go to the reformatory, get to see, learn some of these stories are out there. Obviously, something like the Civil War is going to be more of a sad note because of, again, the death, versus this more sad of, again, some of these guys maybe be wrongfully convicted, or some of them actually went there, for doing terrible things. But what stories can we learn from there? I mean, we've also done the insane asylum and that's known as Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, which is absolutely massive, and that is another place that we absolutely love going to because, again, you went from dealing with criminals to now more of the mentally unstable, mentally ill patients, and again, there's a lot of energy and a lot of story to be told, and that's why I like to go out and try to venture and get to know these stories.
Is there any, we got about 40 seconds here, so I guess there's really no point asking. I was going to ask is there any stories out there that really hit home or that, really stand out to the public? Because just wanted to know, but considering we got like 30 seconds left before we got to take a break, not a really good time to be pumping up that question. Not a good time.
Right, yeah. The answer in shortcoming, absolutely yes.
Yeah,
but
that's a good way
we
to
can get more
it.
to it next.
Yeah, we can get into that. We'll continue with the reformatory after the break here on Spaced Out Radio. Our guests tonight are Gene Claridge and Jose Esparza. They are from the team John Carroll Paranormal Research Group out of the state of Ohio. We're going to get more into the reformatory and see what else these guys are up to in investigating the weird and strange. You are listening to Spaced Out Radio. I'm your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back with the third hour and Everett Thiemer at the bottom of the hour with the SOR Encounter and the Thought of the Dave as well. Lots coming up in hour number 3.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Morin, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your 4-Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us and bring your questions for us to investigate right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
When it comes to the news, we look for the stories that the mainstream won't cover. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter. This is News Director Everett Thiemer. The Encounter is about the weird and strange stories that occur daily, and we scour the world looking to bring them to you. You can hear me with Dave Scott every Monday through Friday in our Encounter news segment. Read us online at spacedoutradio.com or check us out and give our Facebook page a like at SOR The Encounter. So come give The Encounter a read.
From the mile-high state of Colorado, sharing our signal around the world, I invite you to Spaced Out Sundays. Hi, I'm Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm closing out the week by taking you on a paranormal journey to the world of the weird. Ghosts, aliens, psychic phenomena, I will hit it all in your questions too. So let us highlight the paranormal for you. So come join me for Spaced Out Sundays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
A child grew up
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. Tomorrow night on the program, Jamie Sexton is back with the Rebel Planet as we get into all things alternative on the news side. We're going to get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern at spacedoutradio.com. Hi, how are you to everybody listening in on the SOR Radio Network and Deep Talk Radio? Good to have you with us. Don't forget, you can also check out our archives for free. Yes, free. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Isotherm Bros. Isotherm Bros is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our store, read up on the encounter online, and so much more. Also, tickets are officially on sale for the first annual Caribou Paracon being presented by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. Go to questers.ca, that's questers.ca, and get your tickets September 28th through 30th at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. There we go. Grant Cameron, Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, myself, so many more speakers coming at you. It's a weekend of adventure and excitement in the paranormal here in British Columbia. We want you to attend. Gene Claridge and Jose Esparza are our guests tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We have been talking about paranormal all night long on Ghosts of the Great White North, which happens the third Wednesday of every month. These two gentlemen are from the John Carroll Paranormal Research Group in Ohio, and we're talking about the Ohio State Reformatory. And right before the break, guys, I asked you about some of the weird, strange stories that have happened at this reformatory. Gene, fill us in.
Actually, yeah. So when most people think of hauntings, they always think of, hauntings taking place now, not really thinking of it in terms of it can happen when the building is still being in use. So the example story I want to give actually comes from an inmate that was there in the prison when it was still used up until the 1990s. So this is coming while the prison's still an active location. And he explained that every night the guards would come around and he would stay up, and when the guard came near his cell, he would talk to him for a little bit, chat with him. And one night he had stayed up late and waiting for the guard to walk by. He heard the footsteps approaching, but when the footsteps went past his cell, no physical human being, no guard that he's used to talking to. And the footsteps kept on going. And he was like, that was very strange. Well, obviously, again, you have an example of a haunted prison with a tale from when it was still being used as a prison. And what's fascinating to me is that this individual, can't just go around and just start telling everyone, hey, these are, you experience ghosts here. I mean, obviously he's in a prison environment that's just, putting a target on your back. But I think that's a really cool story. And I don't think people realize that, again, stuff can happen when the building's still being used for that historical purpose.
With the ghosts that are still walking around there, are they violent? Are they psychopathic? Are they attentive to what you are doing on a ghost hunt?
I think it depends on the area that you're in. So, for instance, we've investigated a few times, and in the West Cell block, we had a situation in which we captured, these large sounding bangs that reverberated through the reformatory. Obviously, something like that, those sounds aren't anything that you're going to feel negative with, right? But we had a situation in which it was myself and then the team that I was with, a lot of the other guys that were with me played football with me at John Carroll. So, bigger guys, and we were up on tier 2 of the East Cell block, which is the second from the top. And that was known as the Grays tier, from what we were told. These guys were the baddest of the bad. They're in their cell all week long, except for 1 hour in which they got to be hosed down. And when we were up there, we didn't know that. And we were trying to find the cell that was seen in Ghost Hunters. They had like a special X marked in it. So we were trying to locate that cell, and we walked the whole tier. We walked the whole way down from the tier. And as we started walking, the four of us all in line, we just kept on feeling watched, and it became more and more negative. Like just feeling like hatred coming from the cells, where it's just like they did not like us walking by. And when we were making our way back, so we made our way all the way down to the tier, and as we were coming back, that feeling intensified so much that a lot of us like almost froze up in our tracks. It became difficult to breathe. It just was, I guess, such a very negative area. So I think it depends where you're at in the prison, and I think it can change. 1 minute solitary confinement can be, a very, very harsh, again, negative feeling environment. And then you can walk through it later on and feel absolutely nothing. And it may be different, too, based on the person's sex. A lot of women that go there report feeling their hair being pulled or, being touched and stuff. So a woman might have a different experience than someone else that's on the tour. One of the girls that was part of our team actually got very, very sick and had to go back to the break room just to kind of clear her head because she became so nauseated. And she was in an area that all of the guys felt totally fine. So I think, again, it's hard to say whether, is the whole place negative? Nah, not necessarily. I mean, I think you have some good, I think in the chapel, everyone that was in the chapel was always talked about being, kind of almost breathing at peace, having a good, proper feeling, not having that negative feeling that we felt like in Eastern Cell Block. So I think it all depends where you're at in the prison and who you might be with and stuff as well.
Jose, what kind of experiences did you have there?
Well, as Gene alluded to, the chapel for me, it was that location that really drew to me. Because when you think of a chapel, that's a solemn place. It's a place of communion, and it's a place where services or masses would have taken place. And it's actually interesting enough at the Reformatory, there was actually a section. You can see it today. You can see the outlines, but there was actually a balcony that you could still see the remnants of it that was actually created for the actual general public to sit on top, and on the bottom, would be where the prisoners would sit. So you could have a joint mass and and have that still have that community, even in a hostile place in a prison. You think prison, you think, well, how could you have such a solemn mass or service there when you have all this negativity? But I felt drawn to that because it's being the spiritual person that I am. I always find the chapel to be that very peaceful place. And I actually had a personal experience there where as we said earlier in the show, I was a recorder, predominantly the recorder for the group. So my job was to write down notes and document our location and kind of have those time codes. And actually, as I was writing in this one occasion, my hand, my left hand, I'm right-handed when I write. My right hand started to have this cold sensation, and actually, it was only in my right hand. It almost went numb. I really almost couldn't feel it. It was like I was writing my notes, and it felt like somebody had put their hand over mine, as I was writing. So that was a really weird feeling, but I didn't feel like it was anything negative. I just felt like it. Maybe just somebody wanted to make their presence known. And that was a really weird experience, but I think it was something unique that was able to be experienced, and especially somewhere like the chapel that is considered to be more of a, I guess maybe neutral or not seen as the most negative place. It's has a little bit more positivity to it. So, but I've really felt drawn to that location. That's probably I guess you could say one of my favorites, just because not just the experience, but just being able to look around and realizing this was a place where you could be in communion in such a negative space. And it was it's really, really fascinating.
Gentlemen, we only have about 16 minutes left with you guys. And I want you guys to share. Well, actually, before we get to that, let me get to a question from Bill Hauser here. He's been waiting a while for this. He's like, do you guys know anything on the stone tape theory? And if you do, What do you think it does and how it can affect paranormal activity?
What is, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. What is the stone tape theory?
I'm not too sure. I ask these questions cold. Let me just quickly Google. This is one.
I'm not familiar either.
Well,
it might
here,
be something we call something else.
I got it right here, and what it is speculation that ghosts and hauntings are analogous to tape recordings, and that mental impressions during emotional or traumatic events can be projected in the form of energy recorded onto rocks and other items and replayed under certain conditions. So basically what's happening at Gettysburg.
Right. And actually, that's wonderful because I was about to segment into a great story. So when we were at the reformatory, as I mentioned before, we had a situation in which our group, my team, Team Alpha, had set up a auto recorder in West Cell Block. And what we did is we walked out of West Cell Block and we headed to the administration wing, while the other team, I think, was in the chapel. Either way, no one was in West Cell Block. And what was really fascinating was while we were gone, we captured on the auto recorder, it sounds like something being dragged across the tier. You hear like this, like almost like sounds like chains. And it only happens for like 5 seconds, which that's really, really compelling because no one's in there. And it's almost like if you took Sims, if you will, where you placed someone in there, they walked around for 5 seconds and you pulled them out because it took us a solid minute before you heard us completely leave that audio from our footsteps and us talking. One of the benefits, again, traveling in a group. And so that was a really fascinating piece of audio. So again, that kind of begs that question of, nothing was there to provoke, again, the sound of chains or the sound of something being dragged. No one asked for anything. It wasn't an intelligent response, but it just happened and was captured. We know no one was in there. Again, we can verify that, again, through our itinerary, through the recorder notes, through our visual feeds that we had. So, again, something happened. Was it because there's energy still being stuck there, or is somebody walking around in terms of a spirit? Again, we don't know. So I think that kind of goes into Bill's question there where, again, maybe it is the product of the environment. But how do we know for sure? We don't. And I think that's why we're in this, because we want to know these questions down the road. How can we get closer to figuring that out?
Got another question here from New Joe. New Joe is asking, could the residuals be an awareness reaction that is not capable of a conscious reaction? The spirit is in a condition of degradation that it can do nothing about. What's your thoughts, Jose?
Yeah, I feel that could definitely be the case. Specifically, I guess we're kind of jumping locations here, but we actually experienced a residual experience when we were at Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in West Virginia. And we actually, had this, there was a shadow figure. If you stood at this long hallway, at the end of the hallway, there was almost a circular windows, almost, it shed light down the hallway. And if you had to look, stand in complete darkness, look down the hallway, but you could, continually see this shadow pop in and out and back and forth. And I do believe there's maybe some entities or spirits that maybe find that residual or the repetitiveness as a maybe a comfort or something that helps them to get noticed. And so that could be something that really kind of defines them. And so we have these these locations definitely have residual things that continue to occur, but I think it's definitely just something maybe it's something personal to them. It's something, like I said, that gets them gets their attention of other people and kind of makes them unique. So in a sense, I definitely, that's based on the residual side of things. I think that's how I would define that.
The other Joe is asking, what do you think would happen if you went to Gettysburg and fired off a cannon to stir up the spirits? Do you know of anybody who's done that?
Actually, when Jose and I investigate these similar battlefields, we go in full garb, and meaning like we're wearing the uniforms. the idea, again, the uniforms acting off as trigger objects. The other thing, too, which is more, again, concerning the firing of weapons, so whether it's cannons or muskets or whatever, reenactments seem to draw out these spirits because, again, it's grabbing their attention. When they were filming the movie Gettysburg, which they had probably one of the biggest flocks of reenactors to head out into the area. There's all kinds of reenactors that could share different stories regarding, reenactors that seem too real or, different things that were happening are explainable with someone what they thought was a fellow reenactor. So we found that these trigger objects, whether it be, again, firing the weapons, obviously no live fired, meaning, again, having live ammunition. Live ammunition's banned from all battlefields at the moment. I know in Vicksburg, Mississippi, they just allowed black powder, but it has, there's a rigorous process of, you have to have someone that's certified with guns there, blah, blah, etc. But moral stories that we found when using these uniforms, when we do investigations, brings a lot of reactions. We had a situation this past spring in which we were in Spotsylvania, which has the Mulesville salient I mentioned earlier, being the Bloody Angle, one of the most intense areas of the entire Civil War, hand-to-hand combat, very brutal fighting that took place there. And I was in a Confederate uniform, and Jose was wearing a Union uniform. And when we were doing our flashlight session behind Confederate lines, Jose, I noticed, would keep on looking down the line. He said that he was feeling watched. He said he didn't feel comfortable, and I think they had to do a lot with the uniform. And actually, Jose, do you want to share the other experience that you had out in Spotsylvania that was the result of your uniform as well?
Yeah, real quick, Dave. We have some time there. I just want to share it really quick. Like Gene said, I was in full Union uniform. I had the kepi, the sack coat, the pants, the full garb, and as Gene said, I was just feeling like I was being watched, and I just didn't feel comfortable. And it would make sense, based on the location, because we were in the Confederate trenches at Spotsylvania. And, after our investigation, our flashlight session, Gene was really, really, comfortable in that area, which, made sense, with him wearing the Confederate uniform. But as we were walking to the next location, because we were actually going to stop by the Ohio Monument, and because they do have an Ohio Monument there, and we're going to pay our fellow Buckeyes a visit, and make sure to see them before we left the battlefield. And as we were walking to that, the entrance to that monument, the whole left side of my body, down from my head all the way down to my toes, wet numb, just completely numb. And it happened for maybe 30 seconds, but it felt a lot longer to me. But it was just one of those really, really unexplainable, experiences that I've had, and that was my most recent one that I can recall from memory, just like that. And it was just really plays to the effect. I think that the uniforms definitely created as a trigger for that opportunity. So I guess it could go back to the original question. Could a cannon fired off a cannon, could it draw up or stir up some of that energy? It definitely could. And I think it definitely with the trigger objects with using the uniforms, I think that definitely all that kind of stuff can play into effect with that.
All right, we got about 9 minutes left with you guys. I want to hear some weird stories. Doesn't matter where, but something that has really tripped you out, Jose, that you just can't explain.
Well, we actually, sticking with the Virginia battlefields, we actually had a investigation on I'm sorry, let me go back. There's actually a really, really interesting experience I've had at Trans-Allegheny, just to go back there. We were in the geriatrics ward, and we had just got done visiting one section of it. We had walked to another section, and we were just taking in all the elements and all the there was a numerous amount of doors there, and all of a sudden I felt a tug on the back of my shirt, and Gene and I were back to back, but we both had our hands in our pockets. And, I turned around and asked him, did you tug on my shirt? He said, no, I had my hands in front of me. My hands were, occupied at the time. And, the guy that we had with us at Trans-Allegheny, he started laughing. We were like, what do you, what's so funny? He said, well, actually, funny enough, in Trans-Allegheny here on the geriatrics ward, the children, they would put children there for the older people to look after, and have some, activity to do. And so it could potentially be one of the little kids, and it was just the right height, right at my waistline, to where I felt a little tug. So I just thought that was kind of, shook me up in the moment, but as I think about it, it was kind of like one of those really, really weird experiences.
How about for you, Gene? In any of the locations that you have investigated, has there ever been one that stuck out with you that just either scared the living daylights out of you or literally was just something so phenomenal you can't explain?
Absolutely. Trans-Allegheny definitely is the place that calls that I think of most. The two things that happened there, I know we don't have too much time, but so it's myself, and at the end of the investigation, we decided to split up into pairs, and the place is 240,000 square feet, so it is massive. So at the very end of the investigation, we kind of went off in different pairs, and the girl that was with me, we went up to the 4th floor hallway, which is in Ward V, which is detox rehab. So this is, again, where you're going to have patients that struggle with drug addiction, alcohol, etc. And what was really fascinating was we were up there, and we were, again, just trying to use the flashes to, again, make communication, kind of create that initial contact. And we were asking, when we were asking questions, we were asking about alcohol and asking, what was your favorite kind of alcohol? And I started naming them off. I went through whiskey. I went through, bourbon, Jaeger. And when I got to vodka, both lights on the ground turned on. And I, there's a lot of speculation whether or not the flashes session is credible. But what's fascinating was I said, oh, so it sounds like you like vodka. Well, I'll tell you what, if you can have one of your friends slam a door, I'll see about having the guide bring you up a bottle of vodka. And it's not even 5 seconds later, from down the hallway in which we know there's absolutely nobody, the loudest door slam I've ever heard, where it was a full just wham. It just shook the whole area, and in being complete darkness, that was an experience I'll never forget.
See, that's just weird. Have either of you ever been attacked?
Kinda. As I mentioned to you before, in terms of hospital reformatory, when I was up on that second tier, again, I felt very, very, nauseated up there. But actually, when it comes to mind, for me, the most recent thing was when we were in Spotsylvania, after Jose had his experience, we were making our way to the Aha Monument. Again, I was wearing a Confederate uniform. And as I was approaching the monument, Jose said he felt better. But for myself, I felt this, I was wearing a Confederate slouch hat, and I felt this pressure on top of my head, like someone was taking their hand and pushing down very violently, to the point where I almost, started dry heaving. That's how nauseated I got. So I don't know if necessarily it's an attack, or if they just, saw me in the uniform and just assumed I was a bad guy, the enemy. So that, I guess, can qualify as an attack.
Wow. Do you spiritually cleanse yourself before and after?
Absolutely. Protection is key.
Take us through that, because I think that's such an important part of any investigation.
Right. So when we were forming the group at Carroll, one of the things that the school had asked about is, these priests talked about playing with fire. What are you guys going to do to protect so you don't have anything fall, or you don't have, put our students at risk here? And each person obviously is going to be different. And the biggest thing for us is going to be, your faith is your first line of protection. Whether if you're Catholic, maybe again, we're going to do a group prayer before and afterwards, or for a Catholic that might work, versus someone that may be more, a Buddhist or of a different other faith, they might, do their own prayer. Or if there's someone that's completely, skeptical, and let's say they're agnostic or atheist, again, what is your rock that's going to hold, that you're going to fall back on it if everything hits the fan. So for us, again, we want to have, being rooted in faith and having that first line protection is really important. I know so for some people that might, again, be as simple as bringing a rosary or having their cross, or doing something afterwards, such as burning incense or whatever it may be. For each person it's going to be different.
How about you, Jose? Ever had that experience where you've been freaked out?
Well, I definitely I think the most memorable one was definitely Spotsylvania. I can replay it over and over again. It's just something that continues to be point of emphasis. If you ask me what personal experience I've had, that's what I go to because it's just so fresh. But also, it's one that it felt like it was a little bit more than the one I experienced at Mansfield with the cold feeling on my hand. For my whole left side of my body to go numb to a certain extent. I definitely felt that it was not necessarily attack as Gene had pointed out, but I definitely walking along Confederate lines, I was definitely seen as the enemy, and so it's definitely one of those that continues to kind of leaves me unsettled. I was very, very uncomfortable. So.
Very interesting. Gentlemen, we only got about a minute left. Thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. This show flew by, and I appreciate both of you coming in. And, too bad Mike Morin missed a good one tonight. He better have had a few drinks on us. That's for sure. At least for us. Yeah, exactly. Gentlemen, Gene, before we let you go, let us know where people can find your information.
So they can find John Carroll University Paranormal Research Group on Facebook and or JCU Paranormal. We also have a Twitter handle, JCU_Boo. We also have an Instagram, JCU Boo as well, and a Snapchat too. So I know we're active on all social media, some more than others. I know the current guys love Instagram more than Facebook these days, but you can find us on there, and you can also find us individually on Facebook as well under Gene Claridge and Jose Esparza.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Really a pleasure to have Gene, you on, and Jose, you on as well. Let's stay in touch and keep us abreast with what's going on in your research.
Thank you so much, Dave. We really do appreciate it.
Coming up next, Everett Themer and The Encounter. Let's get to it. We're encountering the encounter tonight with Everett Themer as we take a look around the world at the news of the day, the weird, the strange, the WTF. The news is always changing, and that's why we bring you the encounter. Don't forget, you can find all of our latest news at facebook.com/SOR The Encounter. Everett Themer, our news director. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing just fantastic. I feel like $1,000,000 right now. I don't know why. I'm just like wide awake, and I've had it's been go, go, go all day. But I have to say this. I screwed up today. In my busy schedule, I forgot something very, very important.
You forgot to call the Canadian Revenue Service?
Okay, two things. I never called the Canadian Revenue Service today, and I was supposed to hook up with Grant Cameron for a live video feed, and my son was having one of those days where, you know how kids can get. He had that day today. And I was so busy dealing with my boy today that I missed my video session with Grant Cameron.
I think Grant will understand.
I hope so. I send him an email. I feel horrific. I got to call him tomorrow just to apologize. But nonetheless, that was my day, and what good guests, Gene Claridge and Jose Esparza. That is a great tandem for a paranormal team, man.
That was a lot of fun. I don't know if I can ever get used to the idea of pronouncing Gettysburg as Gettysburg. I think it's ingrained in the world as Gettysburg, but that was a lot of fun.
I thought so too. And you know what I liked about them was that they were, very clear in their speaking. They weren't trying to play science people, as we've heard on this show before. They weren't trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. It's just like, let's let the evidence do the talking and figure out why. And the fact that they have access to university professors to bounce all of their information and their evidence on, I mean, that's pretty incredible. Those guys are doing what I wish the rest of the paranormal field would do.
Definitely. And, that seems to be a really good resource. And it seems to be a trend that's shifting slowly, that these academics are willing to kind of entertain some of these ideas again.
Well, you know what? Next week we have Professor Paul Kingsbury coming on from Simon Fraser University in Vancouver, where he has a huge grant to actually study these phenomena that are happening. And I believe he could be one of the only professors in North America to actually get a grant from this, and the thumbs up from the university as well. So I'm very excited to talk to Paul next week.
I'm excited to hear that. I think this is a shift that's only going to benefit the field.
I agree, and I hope it continues. Let's get to the news of the day on the encounter, my friend. What do you got for us?
I let my fifth grader fly today because everything I brought seems to involve either potty or food jokes.
Let's start off with some food because I'm kind of hungry.
Well, then we'll do the obvious one. You heard about the vehicle, the semi-truck that was stolen, and there's probably some thief out there who was thinking they hit the jackpot with a truckload of Amazon packages destined to people that he could sell or pawn. Well,
right.
He got $100,000 worth of ramen noodles.
What?
The truck was loaded with those packages of instant ramen noodles.
Right.
It was parked, and it was stolen sometime between the end of July and early last week. And it contained nothing but packages of ramen. $100,000 worth of ramen. I didn't think $100,000 worth of ramen could fit in just one truck.
I thought it'd be two or three.
I'd agree with that. And you know what? I mean, that's a horrible thing to steal. What do you do with that much ramen? You certainly can't eat it. You can't sell it.
Yeah, but the colleges, man, what are college kids supposed to eat here? I mean, the semester is just kicked off, and their staple for breakfast, lunch, and dinner is gone.
Well, now they got to go down to the quad and find their ramen dealer.
No kidding. Wonder what ramen noodles go on the black market around colleges. Could you get $1 for them? $1.50?
I think you can buy a package at the store for like 40, 50 cents.
That's what I'm saying. You go on the college in the black market, I mean, the prices go up.
Oh, I just don't see there being a giant black market for ramen.
There could very well be. That's a college staple, my friend.
Yeah, but you can't go into a dollar store or a grocery store or
if it's like 11:30 at night or 1:30 in the morning when you're doing a big study break and you need to eat and you're out of ramen noodles, my friend, you will pay big money for a bag of ramen.
You know what? You're right, because I think I've done that in the past.
I think so, too.
I think totally everybody has. I mean, you're right. That was a college staple.
Exactly. This is serious stuff here, guys. Serious stuff.
You know, I feel sorry for the truck driver, but I would have loved to have seen the look on that thief's face when they cracked open that trailer and just saw nothing but ramen noodles. That had to be disappointing.
Talk about, I mean, when you fail as a thief, you open up that truck and you find ramen noodles. How do you know you need a career change and fast?
Well, you know, it was probably just a crime of opportunity. The truck had been sitting there for a week. Somebody probably just thought, hey, I'm going to take that, and didn't give it much thought. And now they're eating ramen.
Exactly. That's hilarious. Hilarious. Let's move on to story number 2.
Oh, this one's much better. Thomas Tragliani, a New Jersey school superintendent, has been fired. Well, he's resigned for being a serial pooper. He was caught on video relieving himself on the track of a different competing district's high school.
No.
Yes. And now...
Hold on a second here. The guy is a school superintendent and he's dropping a deuce on a competing school's track?
Yes. And now he's still going to receive about $100,000 in salary after resigning.
Are you kidding me?
I wish I was.
How do you get to keep your money after doing something so heinous and grotesque?
Well, he says his resignation is not an admission of guilt, even though they do have this on video. But he is going to be paid until the end of September when his resignation takes effect. He's going to collect some unused vacation times and things like that. But $100,000, I don't think a school superintendent around here makes $100,000 in a year. And this is, for approximately 6 months.
So was he somebody who was, working one of these private school boards where they could get, all sorts of money?
No, it's a public city. It's a public city school board.
Wow.
And his attorney says that they intend to sue the school district because first, he should not have been videotaped. And second, they should not have taken his mugshot for such a low-level crime.
He's a criminal. But, I mean, at what point do any of us, okay, and I'm not trying to go down the potty humor road here, but at what point do any of us wake up in the morning and think, this is a good idea? Okay, I realize accidents can happen. All right?
Repeatedly pooping on somebody else's track is not an accident.
Exactly. It's terrible.
And no motive has been given. This was just something he was doing.
I don't get it, man. I don't get it. Why would someone do this? Especially in a position of authority. I mean, these are, I hate to use this term because I always feel it's a cop-out term, but these are children who are running that track. They don't need to see, some big deuce in the middle of lane 2.
Imagine the feelings of the groundskeeping or janitorial crew at that school periodically every morning having to go out there and take care of the situation.
Horrible. And how often was this happening? Was this daily?
They didn't say that it was daily, but it was on a semi-regular basis. They didn't go into too much detail on that.
Horrific. This guy gets $100,000.
Yes.
And all he has to do is basically line up a new job.
That's it. And the school district is not even going to contest his unemployment application. So he's going to resign. He's going to get paid through the end of September, and then he's going to file for unemployment while he looks for another job. And they're not going to fight it, all because he was pooping on the track.
I still don't understand what makes a person want to do that.
It takes all kinds.
It's terrible. All right, let's move on to number 3 here.
Well, let's go across the country over to San Francisco.
All right.
We had talked about a month ago about their situation with
Yes.
people relieving themselves. Well, now they're starting what they're calling a poop patrol. They are going to have 6 people form crews and go out on the streets specifically to pick up human waste.
It's sad that it's come to that. Wouldn't it be cheaper if they just, built some bathrooms? I know
Well,
that's
they
what
do.
Vancouver did, but I mean, maybe put, like screw down or chain down some of these porta potties. Allow people to have some decency and human benefit rather than having to, drop their excrement in a public place.
They do have what they call pit stops, essentially porta potties, about 20, 25 of them around the city. But how many do you have to deploy? And in the areas that they are having this problem, what are the chances of those pit stops being damaged, broken, stolen, destroyed?
I get
to the point where you can't. Go ahead.
Let me ask you this: is it a homeless issue, or is it just a cultural issue?
It's primarily. I feel bad labeling it this, but it's primarily in areas with high homelessness issues. It's not specifically entirely the homeless population. I mean, I'm sure there are some people out there who are doing this because they think they can get away with it, but it is in the less genteel, more stricken neighborhoods of the town.
Terrible.
Well, there's one more potty story.
Oh, no.
Paris is rolling out these essentially porta potties that men can just pee in out in public to curb what they call the wild peeing that is taking place in Paris. Now, I've never thought of Paris as being one of those places where people just pee in the streets, but it has become such a problem that they are developing these. They look somewhat like a mailbox, but they're designed to attract your attention if you have to pee, and you just walk up to them and pee.
So they're like putting the troughs that used to be in old stadiums around.
No, it's a little bit more private than that. It would look similar to like a mailbox and a urinal together. You kind of walk up to it and just do what you have to do in there. But there are some people that are claiming this is sexist and that it implies that men cannot control where or when they pee.
Well, I mean, if you're coming out of the bar at like 2:30 in the morning, it's better than just pulling up a tree. I mean, who needs that old-fashioned type of peeing out in the wilderness? Who does that?
Well, I hardly call downtown Paris the wilderness, even though they do refer to it as wild peeing.
Terrible. How is this?
What's it say about the world, though?
Go ahead. I'm just shaking my head here.
What's it say about the world that we have 2 poop and 1 pee stories? Granted, it's just for fun, but what's that say?
I don't know. I don't know how to respond.
It's an interesting world we live in, but there's something.
You're telling me that there is no other stories out there besides these.
Oh, do you want to talk about John Carver?
Sure. Let's talk about him.
Well, John Carver, he's from Alabama, and he faces potentially 20 years in jail after he shot his son over a chicken wing.
Why?
They were watching an NFL game last fall, and they were, as people often do at these events, they were sitting at home, but they were snacking and eating, and he wanted the last chicken wing, so his son had it, and they got into a fight, and he ended up shooting his son. He's been convicted of domestic violence and faces 20 years in prison.
I hope he gets it. The dumb factor alone earns at least 19 of those 20 years.
It does, but I mean, is a chicken wing big enough to justify shooting anybody? I don't care how good it is. Is it really worth it?
No. I mean, you know what? Look, I'm all for people having guns, and I'm not trying to make this into a big gun debate.
And I'm all for people having chicken wings.
What about the idea of ordering more or making more?
You're asking a lot.
I mean, how many pizza joints down there have hot wings or any type of wings? God, we got them up here, man. I can order a pizza and hot wings right now.
Oh, don't do that. I'm starving.
Oh God, I could use that right now. But either way, dude. Either way, this is your own child, and you pull a gun on your own child and shoot him? Throw the key away, you jerk. I want to use other terms for what I think of this piece of garbage.
It's Alabama. Not quite Florida, but close.
Unbelievable. You shoot your kid over a hot wing. That is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
It is sad in a way, but it's it is what it is, and it's what the world may be coming to.
Well, that person should also be banned from firearms. That's just straight danger. If he's willing to shoot his own kid for a hot wing, what more is coming down the pipeline with this guy if he doesn't get, or when he gets out of prison?
There may be some anger or alcohol issues there, huh?
Yeah, exactly. That's the type of person who should be banned from owning firearms. Ban them from owning firearms.
Well, after he gets out of prison, with a felony conviction, most likely he will be banned from owning or possessing firearms.
Brutal. What a stupid way to end a family. Stupid way. Over a hot wing. Oh. Can we squeeze in one more, or should we go to the thought of the day?
Oh, we can squeeze in a quick one.
All right.
There's an ancient statue of Buddha that was stolen from an Indian museum back about 60 years ago.
Yeah.
It was found in a London antiques fair, and it's being returned back to the nation of India.
Oh, that's sweet.
It is.
That is.
It's going to be.
That's great.
It's going to be handed over to the Indian Commission. Today.
Were they able to track down how it got there?
They tracked down the dealer and the owner of it. The dealer was selling it for an owner, and both of them didn't seem to know the history of the object. And when they found out, they both willingly handed it over to the British officials, who then arranged for it to make its way back to India.
That's kind of cool. I love hearing stuff like that, because, that obviously meant a lot to the people of India, and to get a Buddhist statue returned, knowing Buddha means so much to so many people over there. I like those feel-good stories when stuff like that happens.
It is. Unfortunately, this was one of 14 statues that were stolen, and most of them have not been recovered yet.
Wow. I got to ask you, did you see the story that was in Sports Illustrated?
The Dale Earnhardt
yeah,
crash story? Yeah, that
we got to share this story, man. This is a fantastic story. Do you remember about that? Do you want to go with it?
Well, he was involved in a crash on the track. Was it in 2014? I think it was.
Yeah, and a Le Mans race.
Yeah, and he says that he doesn't remember getting out of the vehicle. He feels that he was pulled by somebody out, like pulled by a ghost out of the vehicle.
Well, this is what he told Sports Illustrated in an interview. And this is a quote courtesy of Sports Illustrated. He said, "When I wrecked in the Corvette in 2004 at Sonoma and it caught fire, somebody pulled me out of that car. And I thought that it was a corner worker because I felt somebody put their hands under my armpits and pull me out of the car. I didn't get out. I don't have any memory of myself climbing out of the car. And I remember sort of moving like in motion, like going to lean forward and try to climb out of the car. And then something grabbed me under the armpits, pulled me up over the door bars, and then let go of me. And I fell to the ground, and there's pictures of me laying on the ground next to the car. I know that when I got to the hospital, I was like, who pulled me out of the car? I got to say thanks to this person because it was a hand. It was physical hands grabbing me. I felt it, pardon me, and there was nobody there. The problem was everybody was saying to Earnhardt, how did you get out of the car? This is what they were saying. When Earnhardt was told that nobody was there to save him from that wreck, his response was BS, and that he remembered his version of the story being how it happened. Now, did he have a Mandela effect? Was it a paranormal situation? I mean, there's a lot going on right now. That is a real interesting story.
I'm curious to know if there is any video of the crash.
Well, apparently there is.
I mean, does it show him? We'll have to find that and see if it shows him climbing out himself, or if he looks a little, he looks a little weird, like he was being pulled out or something. I'd like to see that video.
I'd like to see that video too. I actually really would like to see that video. And actually, they have it. If you go to SI.com, so Sports Illustrated's website, SI.com, they actually have the video, and it's 41 seconds long. And I'm just kind of playing it right now because I want to see. Oh, there's the wreck there. All right. I don't see the car on fire. Oh, yeah, there. The engine explodes in the back. And now they're showing, the car wiping out and hitting the grate, and now it's going to all of a sudden explode into fire, which is kind of cool because, these... Oh, yeah, there's flames all around Earnhardt, man. Okay, there he is, kind of leaping. It looks like he's... If you go to, like, the 35-second mark, you see him... getting out of the car, or the 32-second mark, you kind of see the door of the car open, and then he's just kind of looking like he's being lifted out and falling on the ground. It looks really weird. Really weird.
It does. We need to get some other opinions on this video.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely we need to get some opinions on this. This is kind of cool, actually. Really cool. Go to SI.com. Check out that video. It's weird. Weird. Everett Themer, tell everybody where they can find the encounter.
They can find the encounter at facebook.com/SOR The Encounter Online.
Appreciate that. We'll talk to you tomorrow night, my friend.
You have a wonderful night.
Absolutely. We want to also thank Gene Claridge and Jose Esparza coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight for Ghosts of the Great White North. We were talking to them from the John Carroll Paranormal Research Group in Ohio. check them out. I think these guys are doing it right. Tomorrow night on the program, Jamie Sexton is back with a jam-packed edition of The Rebel Planet. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern at spacedoutradio.com. Don't forget, go to questers.ca after the show. Click on Fall Conference to get your tickets right now for the first annual Caribou Paracon, presented by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers, September 28th through 30th. I want to see all of you up here in British Columbia. So that's a lot of people, man. A lot of people. Come on up and see our great lineup of speakers, including Grant Cameron and David Weatherly. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thank you to everybody listening in at home, in your cars, at work, wherever you may be. A big thank you to everyone taking part in the Spreaker chat. You were absolutely awesome. Great questions tonight, everybody. Everyone for their great snark, including you, Mr. Skeptic. You win the night on Twitter at hashtag SpacedOutRadio. And a packed house at the Veterans Club, the SOR Space Travelers on Facebook. Thanks for sharing the show, telling your friends, and doing your part to help make us bigger and better every single night. Because together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you in 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Good night.